I arrived home unannounced to find my wife sleeping on the doormat in the freezing rain wearing rags. My son-in-law wiped his muddy designer shoes on her sleeve and laughed, telling his wealthy guests she was just the crazy maid who liked to sleep outside like a dog. I did not scream. I stepped out of the shadows and the laughter died instantly because he was wearing the $1,200 shoes I bought him. But he was about to pay a price higher than his life. Before telling you what I did next, like this video, subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you are listening to my story from. I want to know how far it has reached. 3 weeks ago, I was lying in a hospital bed 200 miles from home, staring at ceiling tiles and wondering if I'd ever see my wife Beatrice again. The surgeon had just told me I needed emergency heart surgery. A triple bypass. The kind of operation that makes you think about mortality and legacy and all the things you thought you had more time to fix. I'm John Prescott, 65 years old. Built a shipping company from nothing 40 years ago with just a beat-up truck and a promise to deliver anything, anywhere, on time. Prescott Shipping became one of the largest freight operations on the East Coast. I employed over 300 people. I had warehouses in 6 states. I was worth $32 million on paper. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not Emily, my daughter. Not even Beatrice, my loving wife. The secrecy was necessary. In my line of work, showing weakness meant inviting vultures. Men like me didn't survive by broadcasting their vulnerabilities. But now, watching my wife curled on the cold stone, her gray hair matted with rain, her thin body shaking in a dress that looked like it came from a garbage bin, I realized my secrecy had cost me everything. Brad Thompson stood in the doorway of my mansion that I had paid for with so many years of hard work and calculated risks. He wore a tailored suit that probably cost $5,000. His blonde hair was perfectly styled. His teeth gleamed white as he grinned at the 3 couples clustered behind him, all holding champagne glasses. "Seriously, you have to see this," Brad was saying. "The old bat actually prefers it out here. We tried to bring her inside last week and she bit Margaret." He gestured to a young woman in a designer dress who giggled nervously. One of the men, portly with a red face, peered down at Beatrice. "Is she really senile? She looks completely out of it." "Gone," Brad said, tapping his temple. "Doesn't even know her own name most days. It's sad, really. But what can you do? We're keeping her fed and housed. More than most people would do for their burden of a mother-in-law." I felt my hands curl into fists. The surgical incision in my chest pulled painfully, but I barely noticed. Beatrice's eyes were closed, but I could see her lips moving slightly. She was whispering something. A prayer. A cry for help. I stepped forward into the light spilling from the doorway. "Those shoes," I said quietly. "The Italian leather ones. I bought them for you last Christmas, Brad." The laughter cut off like someone had flipped a switch. Brad's face went white. The champagne glass in his hand trembled, sending little ripples across the golden liquid. "John," he said. His voice cracked. "You're supposed to be in. We thought you were gone." I finished for him. I walked slowly toward the group, ignoring the pain in my chest. "Is that what you told people? That I was gone?" One of the women gasped. Another man took a step backward, nearly tripping over his own feet. I knelt beside Beatrice, my knees protesting. Up close, I could see bruises on her wrists. Old bruises, yellowing at the edges. New ones, purple and fresh. Her dress wasn't just old. It was torn, deliberately cut in places. "Beatrice," I whispered. "It's me. It's John." Her eyes fluttered open. For a moment, they were unfocused, confused. Then they locked onto mine and I saw something that made my blood run cold. Not confusion. Not senility. Recognition. And warning. Her lips barely moved. "Basement," she breathed. "Safe. Study. 4-7-9-2. Then her eyes went vacant again and she began to drool slightly, letting her head loll to one side. She was faking it. My brilliant, Wonderful wife was faking dementia. But why? Get away from her, Brad snapped. He had recovered some of his composure. You can't just show up here after abandoning your family for weeks. We had to take control of things. Your company was failing. The house was falling apart. Someone had to step up. I stood slowly, keeping my body between Brad and Beatrice. Step up? Is that what you call this? Dressing my wife in rags and leaving her outside in the rain. She wants to be outside, Brad insisted. His voice had an edge of desperation now. Ask anyone. Ask the staff. She's been like this for months. Ever since you started neglecting her to focus on your failing business. The guests were edging toward their cars now, clearly uncomfortable. Good. Let them leave. Let them spread the word about what they saw here tonight. Everyone out, I said. My voice carried the authority of a man who had commanded shipping crews through storms and boardroom battles through corporate wars. This is my house. Get out. Now. They didn't need to be told twice. Within 30 seconds, engines were starting. Tires squealed on wet pavement. Brad stood alone in the doorway, backlit by the chandelier I had bought in Vienna. You don't understand, he said. Everything's changed. The company is gone. The assets are frozen. You're broke, John. Broke and broken. And honestly, you should thank me. I've been holding things together while you had your little breakdown. My breakdown. I felt a laugh bubble up from somewhere dark and angry. Is that the story you've been telling? It's the truth. Brad crossed his arms. Behind him, I saw movement. Emily, my daughter, appeared at the top of the stairs. Even from this distance, I could see she'd been crying. Her mascara had run. Her expensive dress was wrinkled. Daddy! Her voice was small, uncertain. Emily, I said. What happened here? What did he tell you? She descended the stairs slowly, like a woman walking to her own demise. He said you had a nervous breakdown. That you signed papers giving him power of attorney. That the company was bankrupt and you disappeared rather than face the consequences. Each word was a knife. Not because of what she was saying, but because I could see in her eyes that part of her believed it. And you believed him? I asked softly. You were gone for weeks with no word. Emily's voice broke. No calls. No texts. Nothing. What were we supposed to think? You could have thought that your father, who built an empire from nothing, who never missed one of your birthdays or school plays, who walked you down the aisle with pride in his heart, might have had a good reason for his silence. Emily flinched like I had slapped her. Brad put his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. The gesture was possessive, protective, a man claiming his territory. This isn't getting us anywhere, Brad said. John, you need to face facts. The company is liquidated. The accounts are empty. This house is all that's left, and frankly, it's mortgaged to the hilt. We're trying to save what we can from the wreckage you left behind. Mortgaged? I kept my voice level. I owned this house outright. Paid off the note 15 years ago. Well, things change when you abandon your family. Brad's smile was sharp. Why don't you come inside? We can discuss this like adults. You look terrible, by the way. Maybe you should see a doctor. He didn't know. He actually didn't know where I had been. Which meant he had no idea about the surgery, no idea about the Swiss account I had set up for emergency medical expenses, no idea about the backup plans a man like me always maintains. I bent and carefully lifted Beatrice into my arms. She was lighter than I remembered. Too light. How much weight had she lost? I'm taking my wife inside, I said. Then we're going to have that adult conversation you mentioned. And Brad, you're going to wish I had passed. I carried Beatrice past Brad, who stepped aside with visible reluctance. Emily followed us, wringing her hands. The interior of my house looked different. Wrong. The paintings I had collected over decades were gone, replaced by modern art that screamed expensive, but whispered tasteless. The Persian rugs had been replaced with stark white carpeting. Even the furniture was different, all chrome and glass where there had once been warm wood and leather. "What happened to everything?" I asked. "We updated," Brad said. "Your style was stuck in the 1980s. This is what success looks like now, John. But I wouldn't expect you to understand. You've been out of the game for a while." I carried Beatrice up the stairs to the master bedroom. That, at least, looked somewhat familiar. Our bed was still there. The dresser where Beatrice kept her jewelry. But the personal photos were gone. The small touches that made it our room had been erased. I laid Beatrice gently on the bed. She continued her vacant stare, drool running down her chin, but her hand found mine and squeezed once. Hard. She was telling me to keep playing along. To let them think she was gone. But why? "I'll get her cleaned up," Emily said quietly. "Brad, can you give us a moment?" "I don't think that's a good idea," Brad started, but Emily cut him off. "Please. Just give me a few minutes with my father." Brad's jaw tightened, but he nodded and left the room, closing the door harder than necessary. Emily moved to the bathroom and came back with a warm washcloth. She began gently cleaning Beatrice's face, her movements practiced. She had done this before. Many times. "Daddy," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do." He showed me papers. "Legal documents with your signature." He said you had given him control because you were losing your mind. That the stress had broken you. And you believed forged documents over 30 years of knowing who I am? Emily's hands stilled. Forged. I never signed anything giving Brad power of attorney. I certainly never authorized him to liquidate my company or mortgage my house. I kept my voice low, aware that Brad was probably listening at the door. "How long has he been treating your mother like this?" "She started getting confused about 3 months ago," Emily said. "Little things at first. Forgetting names. Leaving the stove on. Brad said we should put her in a home, but I refused. Then she started wandering outside at night. Getting violent when we tried to bring her back in. The doctors said it was rapid-onset dementia. They recommended constant supervision." "What doctors?" "Dr. Harrison. He's a specialist Brad found. He's been treating Mom for weeks." "I've never heard of Dr. Harrison." "Well, you weren't here." Emily's voice rose, then dropped again quickly. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Daddy. But you can't just come back and judge us. We were trying to handle an impossible situation." I looked at Beatrice. Her eyes had drifted closed, but I could see the tension in her jaw. She was listening to every word. "Emily, listen to me very carefully. I was in Switzerland. I had emergency heart surgery. I didn't tell anyone because in my business, word gets out that you're weak and people start circling like sharks. I was trying to protect this family." Emily sat back on her heels. "Heart surgery? But why wouldn't you tell us?" "Because I'm a stubborn old fool who thought he could handle everything himself." I touched my chest, where the incision throbbed. "But I'm back now, and I need to know everything. Everything Brad has done. Every paper he's made you sign. Every change he's made to my accounts." Emily's face crumpled. "Daddy, I think I made a terrible mistake." "Enough," he said. "Emily, downstairs. Now." "We're having a conversation," I said. "And now it's over." Brad grabbed Emily's arm and hauled her to her feet. She yelped in pain and I saw red. I stood, ignoring the pull in my chest, and moved toward Brad. "Take your hand off my daughter." "Or what?" Brad's smile was ugly. "You'll have a heart attack?" "Oh yes, I know about Switzerland. Did you think I wouldn't have people watching you? The moment you left the country, I knew. And I used that time to secure what should have been mine from the beginning." My mind raced. He had known. All along, he had known where I was and what I was doing. Which meant this wasn't opportunistic. This was planned. "How long?" I asked quietly. How long have you been planning this? Does it matter? Brad shoved Emily toward the door. Go downstairs. I'll handle your father. Emily looked between us, her face pale. Brad, please. He's my father. He's sick. Can't we just... Now, Emily. She fled. I heard her footsteps rapid on the stairs, then the sound of a door slamming. Brad closed the bedroom door and leaned against it. Let me tell you how this is going to work, John. You're going to disappear again. Maybe another medical emergency. Maybe something more permanent. I don't really care. But you're not going to interfere with what I've built here. Built? You've stolen. Semantics. Brad pulled out his phone and showed me the screen. It was a bank statement. My bank statement. The balance read, $347.52. My stomach dropped. I had millions. Multiple accounts. Investments. Bonds. Where? I couldn't form a complete sentence. Gone. All liquidated. All transferred. Some went to pay down your crushing debts. Some went to support this household while you were away. And some, he grinned, some went into investments I made in my name. Diversification. John, you taught me that. That's theft. Fraud. I'll have you arrested. With what evidence? I have your power of attorney. Signed and notarized. I have documentation showing your company was failing for months before you left. I have medical records from Dr. Harrison showing your mental deterioration. I have witnesses who will testify that you became abusive and erratic before your disappearance. He pocketed his phone. In short, I have everything. And you have nothing. I looked at Beatrice. She hadn't moved. Hadn't reacted. But I remembered her whispered words. Basement. Safe. Study. 4-7-9-2. She had prepared for this. Somehow, my brilliant wife had seen this coming and prepared. Fine, I said. You win. I'm old. I'm sick. I'm tired. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should just disappear. Brad's eyes narrowed. You're giving up? Just like that. What choice do I have? You've taken everything. You could fight. Call lawyers. Call the police. And tell them what? My son-in-law showed me legal documents that I don't remember signing. That my wife, who multiple people have witnessed acting senile, is actually faking it. That I disappeared for weeks and now I'm mad that someone had to take charge. I sat down heavily on the bed. I'm not stupid, Brad. You've covered your bases. You've won. Brad stared at me for a long moment. I could see the wheels turning in his head. Was this a trick? Was I really giving up? You can stay here tonight, he finally said. Tomorrow, we'll discuss where you'll go. There's a care facility upstate that specializes in elderly patients with heart conditions. Very discreet. Very comfortable. I think you'll like it there. And Beatrice? She's already enrolled in a memory care unit. She'll be moved there next week. It's for the best. She'll get professional help. And Emily and I can focus on rebuilding what you destroyed. He left, locking the door behind him. I heard the click of the deadbolt and had to fight the urge to laugh. He had locked me in my own bedroom. The arrogance was stunning. I waited 5 minutes. Then 10. When I was sure Brad had gone downstairs, I turned to Beatrice. He's gone, I whispered. You can stop now. Beatrice's eyes opened. Clear. Sharp. Completely lucid. 3 months, she said quietly. I've been playing senile for 3 months, waiting for you to come back. Why didn't you tell Emily? Because he watches her like a hawk. Listens to every conversation. Tracks her phone. She's as much a prisoner as I am, but she doesn't fully realize it yet. Beatrice sat up slowly, wincing. He started dosing my tea about 4 months ago. Something that made me foggy. confused. I figured out what he was doing and started dumping the tea in the plants. But I had to pretend it was still working. Had to play the fool while he destroyed everything you built. The basement. The safe. What's there? Your emergency backup. You had that safe installed last year, remember? After the Malaysian deal went south and you said you needed a failsafe. You put documents in there. Evidence. Backups of bank records. Proof of your real financial position. She grabbed my hand. And something else. Something I added after I figured out what Brad was doing. What? His secrets. John, Brad isn't just a thief. He's in deep trouble. Real trouble. The kind that gets people destroyed. Before she could explain, we heard footsteps in the hallway. Beatrice immediately went limp, her eyes rolling back, drool forming at the corner of her mouth. The transformation was instant and terrifying. The door unlocked. Brad stood there with a tray. On it was a single glass of water and 2 pills. "Your medication," he said to me. "For your heart." I looked at the pills. They were the wrong color. The wrong shape. These weren't heart medication. "I'm fine," I said. "Doctor's orders." Brad's smile didn't reach his eyes. "You take these twice a day. Morning and evening. They'll help keep you stable." I said I'm fine. Brad's expression hardened. He set the tray down and pulled something from his pocket. A syringe. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way, John. Your choice." My heart was pounding. The surgical incision felt like it was tearing open. But I couldn't show weakness. Not now. "If you inject me with that, it's illegal. I'll press charges." "Good luck proving it. By tomorrow morning, you won't remember this conversation. Those pills? They're a bit stronger than heart medication. Mild sedatives. Mixed with some other things that cause confusion. Disorientation. Memory loss. The same cocktail that's been keeping your wife so manageable." He had been dosing us both. Planning to keep us sedated and compliant while he stripped away everything we owned. I looked at Beatrice, still playing her role perfectly. Then back at Brad. I was 65 years old. Recovering from major surgery. No weapon. No backup. Against a man 30 years younger who had already proven he was willing to go to extreme lengths. The math was simple. I was outmatched. For now. "Fine," I said. "The easy way." I took the pills from the tray and placed them in my mouth. Brad watched carefully as I picked up the water glass and took a drink. I made a show of swallowing, tilting my head back. "Good," Brad said. "See? We can be reasonable. In 30 minutes, you'll feel very relaxed. Very sleepy. And tomorrow, things will be clearer. You'll understand that I'm just trying to help. That signing yourself into that care facility is the best option for everyone." He left again, locking the door. I listened to his footsteps recede down the hallway. Then I spit the pills into my hand. They were wet and already starting to dissolve, but I wrapped them carefully in a tissue and tucked them in my pocket. "Evidence." "Clever," Beatrice whispered. "But he'll check on you in 30 minutes. You need to fake being sedated." I've faked enough things in my life. This won't be hard. I moved to the door and pressed my ear against it. "Can you make it to the study? To the safe?" "Not without being seen. He has cameras everywhere now. Hallways. Stairs. Even in some of the rooms. The bedroom. No. I made sure of that. But everywhere else." I thought fast. Brad expected me to be sedated in 30 minutes. That meant I had a window. A small one, but it might be enough. "Where's the camera monitoring station?" "His office. The small study off the library. He watches everything from there." "Is he alone in the house?" "Where are the staff?" "He fired them all. Said we couldn't afford them anymore. It's just him, Emily, and us." "And Emily?" She's either in her old bedroom or in the guest wing with Brad. They've been sleeping separately the last few weeks. I hear them fighting at night. Good. Cracks in the marriage meant potential allies. But I had to be careful. Emily was my daughter, but she had already proven she could be manipulated. When he comes back to check on me, I need you to cause a distraction, I said. What kind of distraction? Loud. Violent. Something that will pull him away from his cameras for a few minutes. Beatrice smiled. It was a fierce expression, full of anger held in check for too long. I can do that. 20 minutes later, I was lying on the bed with my eyes closed, breathing deeply. Beatrice was in her corner position, curled up like a sleeping dog. We heard the door unlock. Brad entered quietly. He stood over me for a moment. I could feel his presence, smell his expensive cologne. "John," he said softly, "can you hear me?" I didn't respond. Kept my breathing steady. He checked my pulse. I let my arm hang limp. He seemed satisfied and turned to leave. That's when Beatrice exploded into motion. She launched herself at Brad with a shriek that could have woken the heavens. Her fingers clawed at his face. Her teeth found his arm. Brad screamed and stumbled backward, trying to throw her off. "Crazy witch!" he shouted. "Get off me!" Beatrice was like a wildcat, all fury and rage released after months of captivity. She wasn't trying to seriously hurt him. Just distract him. Keep his attention fully on her. I slipped off the bed and moved to the door. Brad's keys were in the lock. I grabbed them and pocketed them silently. "Emily!" Brad was yelling. "Emily, help!" I heard running footsteps on the stairs. Time was up. I got back on the bed and resumed my sedated position just as Emily burst into the room. She grabbed Beatrice and pulled her off Brad, who was bleeding from several scratches on his face and neck. "Get her to the bathroom," Brad snarled. "Lock her in there. I'll deal with her later." Emily wrestled Beatrice into the bathroom. I heard the lock click. Beatrice had done her job perfectly. Brad checked me again, but I remained limp and unresponsive. He cursed and left the room, slamming the door. The lock clicked. But I had his keys. I waited another 10 minutes. The house settled into quiet. Then I carefully got up and moved to the door. Brad's keyring had 12 keys on it. I tried 3 before finding the right one. The hallway was dark except for the dim glow of night lights. I could see a small camera mounted in the corner near the ceiling, its red LED blinking. Beatrice was right. He was watching everything. But he expected me to be unconscious. He wouldn't be watching closely. I moved quickly but carefully down the hall to the main staircase. Another camera there. I kept my head down and moved like a man in a sedated shuffle. If Brad was watching, he would see what he expected to see, a drugged old man wandering in confusion. The study was on the first floor, past the library. I had designed this house 30 years ago. I knew every corner, every shadow. I used them now, moving through pools of darkness between the cameras. The study door was locked. I tried keys until I found the right one. Inside, I could see the outline of my old desk, my chairs, my bookshelves. But everything else was wrong. The personal items were gone. The awards and commendations I had earned over 40 years of business were missing. And in the corner, where there had once been a filing cabinet, was a new safe. Large, modern, digital lock. I punched in the code Beatrice had given me. 4-7-9-2. The safe didn't open. My stomach dropped. Had I remembered wrong? Had Beatrice made a mistake? Had Brad changed the code? Then I noticed the safe was slightly different than I expected. The keypad had letters as well as numbers. A alphanumeric code. I thought about the numbers. 4-7-9-2. Could they be letters? On a phone keypad, 4 could be G, H, or I. 7 could be P, Q, R, S. 9 could be W, X, Y, Z. 2 could be A, B, or C. Too many combinations. I needed to think like Beatrice. What would she use as a code that was meaningful to us but not obvious to Brad? Then it hit me. Our wedding anniversary. April 7th, 1992. April 7th, 92. But written out as letters. I tried. GPYA. Nothing. HQZB. Nothing. I was running out of time. Brad would check the cameras eventually. Would see I wasn't in the bedroom. One more try. I thought about how Beatrice saw dates. She always wrote them European style. Day, month, year. July 4th, 92. Became GGYA. The safe clicked open. Inside, the space was packed with documents. I grabbed my phone from my pocket to use as a light, but the battery was dead. Brad must have disabled it remotely somehow. I pulled out papers by feel. The first stack was financial records. Bank statements showing accounts I had never closed. Offshore holdings. Investments that should still be active. If these records were accurate, I had at least $20 million that Brad either didn't know about or hadn't been able to access. The next stack was legal documents. Copies of the fake power of attorney Brad had used, but marked up with notes in Beatrice's handwriting. Notary seal is fake. Check registration number. Signature analysis shows forgery. Compare to genuine documents dated 2023. She had been building a case. Quietly, carefully, while pretending to be senile. But it was the third stack that made my blood run cold. Promissory notes. Dozens of them. All signed by Brad Thompson. All for enormous sums. $50,000. $100,000. $250,000. The largest was for $1 million. And they were all made out to the same entity, Silverstone Capital Group. I knew that name. Every businessman in this city knew that name. Silverstone Capital Group was a front for the Volkov organization. Russian syndicate. They specialized in high-interest loans to desperate people. Loans that came with brutal repayment terms. Brad owed them over $5 million. Beneath the promissory notes was a collection of printed emails. Threats from Silverstone. Demands for payment. Statements that if Brad didn't pay up, they would take everything. His home. His business. His life. And then, at the bottom of the pile, I found something that made me go cold. A printed text message conversation. Brad to someone named Dimitri. I can get you $2 million by end of month. Just need to liquidate the old man's assets and sell the house. Dimitri's response. Not enough. You owe us 5. Plus interest. 7 total by December 31st, or you know what happens. Brad. I'll get it. I have a plan. The old man has life insurance. $2 million. And his wife has assets in her name. Another $3 million. I can access it all. Dimitri. How? Brad. The old man's sick. Real sick. Heart problems. If something happens to him, his wife inherits everything. And his wife is too senile to stop me from transferring it all. Dimitri. And if the old man doesn't pass fast enough? Brad. Then I'll help him along. The last message was dated 2 weeks ago, just before I returned from Switzerland. Brad was planning to end me, and frame it as natural causes. Heart failure. An old man who pushed himself too hard after surgery. I stood there in the dark study, papers clutched in my hands, and felt a rage unlike anything I had ever experienced. It wasn't hot or explosive. It was cold, dense, suffocating, the kind that settles behind your eyes and makes the world narrow to a single, unavoidable truth. This man had married my daughter. He had eaten at my table, laughed at my jokes, complained about the weather and the traffic and the wine I served with dinner. He had looked me in the eye and called me Dad. And all along, quietly, patiently, he had been planning my demise. The papers trembled slightly as I reread the lines I already knew by heart. Forged signatures. Fabricated debt instruments. A staged timeline meant to make my passing look inevitable, tragic, medically unremarkable. He hadn't planned to end me in a fit of desperation. He'd planned it the way accountants plan tax shelters. Methodical. Clean. Efficient. A sound came from upstairs. Footsteps. Brad. My pulse jumped. Instinct took over before thought could catch up. I gathered the papers into a neat stack, slid them back into the safe, and swung the door shut. There was no time to spin the dial, no time to double-check the latch. I left it imperfect, unfinished, and slipped out of the study as quietly as my body would allow. The hallway lights were dimmed for the night, throwing long shadows across the walls. I moved through them slowly, every step measured. My chest ached where the incision still hadn't fully healed, a sharp reminder that I was not supposed to be doing any of this. That I was supposed to be resting. Sedated. Helpless. I reached the basement door and paused, listening. Brad's footsteps moved above me now, closer to the study. If he checked the cameras, he would see me heading down here. If he didn't, he would notice soon enough that I wasn't where he'd left me. Either way, I was committed. The door was unlocked. That alone told me something was wrong. I eased it open and stepped onto the stairs, letting the door close behind me without a sound. Darkness swallowed me immediately. I slid my hand along the railing and began to descend. Each step sent a bolt of pain through my abdomen. My jaw clenched as I fought the urge to rush, to hurry and be done with it. Rushing was how people made mistakes. I had learned that a long time ago. The basement smelled the same as it always had. Cool concrete. Old paper. A faint metallic tang from the pipes overhead. It was unfinished, utilitarian, a space meant for storage and forgetting. The floor was bare concrete, cracked in places, stained by decades of small, insignificant spills. Exposed pipes ran along the ceiling, some of them wrapped in insulation so old it had yellowed with age. My old filing cabinets lined one wall, tall and heavy, all of them locked. Tools hung neatly on pegboards, outlines marking where each wrench and hammer belonged. Boxes were stacked in the corners, labeled in my handwriting from years ago. Tax records. Shipping logs. Spares. But in the very back of the room, half hidden in shadow and covered with a thick tarp, was something I had not thought about in years. I stopped in front of it. For a moment, I simply stood there, breathing shallowly, as memory crept up on me. Then I reached out and pulled the tarp away. I smiled. The security safe stood exactly where I had left it. Tall, black, scarred along one edge where a crate had once slammed into it during a storm in Durban. This wasn't the safe in the study, the respectable one that held hunting equipment. This was the safe I never talked about. The one that belonged to another life. The items inside were remnants of my time in the Navy, before I became a shipping magnate, before I learned to wear suits and smile through negotiations. Some I had been issued. Others I had acquired over the years while operating in dangerous ports, dealing with dangerous people, learning the hard way that contracts didn't mean much when law disappeared. I stepped closer and examined the lock. Keyed. Mechanical. No electronics. No batteries to fail. I didn't have the key on me. I hadn't for years. But I knew where it was. I turned and walked slowly to the filing cabinets, choosing the third one from the left. My hand slid along the top edge, fingers searching for something no one else would ever think to look for. Dust coated my skin. Then I felt it. A small magnetic holder. I pulled it free and opened it. The key lay inside, dull and scratched, exactly where I had hidden it decades ago. No one had ever found it. No one had ever thought to look. I closed my fingers around it and felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Just clarity. Behind me, somewhere upstairs, a door opened. Brad's voice drifted faintly through the house, calling my name with practiced concern. He thought I was confused. Weak. Easy to manage. I turned back to the safe and slid the key into the lock. It fit perfectly. As I twisted it, the tumblers shifted with a familiar, reassuring resistance. The sound was soft but final, like a decision being made. Whatever Brad thought he had planned for me, whatever future he believed he was steering us toward, it ended here. In this basement. with truths uncovered and old tools brought back into the light. The safe door began to swing open. And with it, the balance of power shifted. The safe opened with a muted click, the sound swallowed by the low hum of the house. Inside was a collection that would have made Brad's eyes bulge if he'd known it existed. 2 sidearms, both cleaned and oiled. A tactical long gun with a shortened barrel. Boxes of supplies sealed against moisture. A set of body armor, old but serviceable. And tucked carefully beneath it all, wrapped in plastic, was something I had bought 20 years ago after a particularly bad incident in Somalia, a satellite phone. It was ancient by modern standards, bulky and inelegant, but it had one virtue that mattered now. It didn't rely on local infrastructure. Towers could go down. Networks could fail. This thing talked directly to the sky. I pulled it free and pressed the power button. Nothing. The screen stayed black. The battery was dead, drained by years of neglect. I felt a brief spike of frustration, sharp but controlled. Plans don't fail all at once. They fail in pieces, and you adapt. Beneath the phone lay a folded solar charger, thin and scratched, but intact. I unfolded it and set it up near the small basement window, angling it toward the faint gray light creeping in from outside. Dawn was beginning to bleed into the night, slow and indifferent. Footsteps sounded overhead. Brad was moving around upstairs, heavier now, less careful. Probably checking the bedroom. Probably already irritated that I wasn't where he'd left me. He would notice soon enough that I was gone. I reached back into the safe and took one of the sidearms. Polymer frame. Simple sights. Reliable. I checked the magazine by feel, seated it, and racked the slide. The soft metallic sound was as familiar as breathing. Comforting, in a way I hadn't expected. I had spent 2 years in the Navy learning how to use equipment like this. Learning how to clear rooms, how to control fear, how to act when hesitation gets people ruined. I'd spent another 30 years hoping that knowledge would never be relevant again. Those days were over. Brad's voice carried down from upstairs, loud and sharp. "Where the hell is he?" Emily answered, but her words were muffled by distance and walls. I couldn't tell what she said, only that she was trying to stall. "Check the house," Brad shouted. He couldn't have gone far. The drugs should have knocked him out for hours. That confirmed it. He hadn't expected resistance. He'd expected compliance. Men like him always do. I heard doors slamming, drawers pulled open, footsteps running back and forth. The rhythm of panic, badly disguised as control. Then the basement door creaked open at the top of the stairs. "John," Brad called down. His tone shifted instantly, coated in false warmth. "Are you down there? It's okay. You're probably confused from the medication. Just come back upstairs and we'll get you back to bed." I didn't answer. I stepped farther into the shadows behind the old boiler, positioning myself so the angle favored me. The light upstairs cast a long, distorted rectangle down the stairwell. I kept my breathing slow, steady. Brad started down the stairs. I saw his legs first, then his hips. He was holding something in his right hand. As he descended further, the object came into view. A syringe. It was larger than the one he'd used earlier. Thicker. The liquid inside looked cloudy, viscous. Not something meant for healing. "John," he said again, irritation creeping through the performance. "This is ridiculous. You're a sick old man. Whatever you think you're doing, it's just going to make things worse." He reached the bottom of the stairs and flipped on the light. The basement flooded with harsh fluorescent illumination, washing away the shadows. The smell of oil and dust seemed sharper suddenly, more real. Brad's eyes went straight to the open gun safe. His face went pale in an instant, as if all the blood had drained from it at once. The syringe slipped slightly in his grip. "Oh," he said quietly. The moment stretched. He looked from the safe to the shadows, his mind racing, recalculating. I could almost hear the internal math. Distance, angles, chances. I stepped out from behind the boiler and raised the gun. "Drop it," I said. Brad froze. His eyes locked onto the weapon, then flicked up to my face. The mask slipped completely now. No charm. No confidence. Just fear. "You don't understand," he said, voice tight. "I was trying to help you. You were confused. You could have hurt yourself." "Put the syringe on the floor," I repeated. Slowly, carefully, he knelt and set it down. His movements were exaggerated, deliberate, like someone approaching a wild animal. "You don't have to do this," he said. "We can talk. I can explain everything." "We already did that," I replied. "You just didn't like the outcome." He swallowed. "Emily doesn't need to see this." "Emily needs to see the truth," I said. "She already has. That's why you're down here alone." That landed. His shoulders sagged slightly. "You think this fixes anything?" he asked. "You harm me, and what then? The police? The Volkovs? You think they'll just disappear?" "I'm not here to harm you," I said. "I'm here to stop you." His gaze flicked again to the gun safe, then back to the weapon in my hands. "You won't pull the trigger." "I don't need to," I said. "You already lost." From upstairs came Emily's voice, strained but steady. "Dad, are you okay?" "I'm fine," I called back. "Stay where you are." Brad flinched at the sound of her. "You told her," he whispered. "I told her everything," I said. "The drugs, the money, the plans. The syringe you're holding proves the rest." He closed his eyes for a moment, as if bracing himself. When he opened them again, there was no fight left in them. Only calculation and dread. "What happens now?" he asked. I kept the gun steady. "Now you sit down. You keep your hands where I can see them. And you wait. Because the next moves don't belong to you anymore." The solar charger hummed softly behind me, catching the first real sunlight of morning. Somewhere above us, the house creaked as it always had, unaware that the balance inside it had finally shifted. Brad sank onto a chair, defeated. And for the first time since this began, I knew with absolute certainty that he would never have the upper hand again. "Don't do anything stupid," he said, raising his hands. "Think about Emily. Think about your grandchildren someday. You don't want to ruin that." "I don't have grandchildren," I said quietly, stepping out from behind the boiler. The gun was at my side, not pointing at him but clearly visible. "And after what you've done, I'm not sure you and Emily will be married long enough to have any." "You're making a mistake." Brad's voice had lost its cheerful tone. Now it was hard. "Calculating. You point that gun at me, and this becomes something you can't take back." "I'm not pointing it at you. I'm just holding it. Constitutional right. This is my house. My basement. I'm allowed to hold my own property. You won't fire." "You're right. I won't. Because I'm not a criminal." I pulled the papers from my pocket with my free hand and held them up. "But you are. Or at least, you were planning to be." Brad's eyes fixed on the documents. "Where did you get those?" "From the safe. The one my wife prepared because she's smarter than both of us combined. She knew what you were doing. She documented everything. And now I know too. Those don't prove anything." "They prove you owe $5 million to the Russian syndicate," I said, tapping the folder in my hand. "They prove you stole from me. They prove you were planning to end me and blame it on my heart condition." I stepped closer, close enough that he could see there was no bluff left in my eyes. "And most importantly, they give me leverage." Brad's hand twitched and moved toward his pocket. "Don't," I said. The gun came up smoothly, almost without conscious thought, the way it always had. Pointed at his center mass. Stable. Certain. Military training doesn't fade. It just waits. Whatever you're reaching for, don't. He froze, breath shallow, eyes darting between my face and the weapon. "You said you wouldn't fire." "I said I wasn't a criminal," I replied evenly. "But I am a father protecting his family." Those are different things. For a moment, the world narrowed to the space between us. An old man with a gun he hoped he wouldn't need. A younger man clutching a pocket that almost certainly held a syringe, a vial, something meant to finish what he'd started. The house seemed to hold its breath. "Here's how this is going to work," I said. "You're going to confess everything to Emily. Every lie. Every theft. Every plan you thought no one would ever uncover. And then you're going to sign an annulment agreement and leave this house." Brad laughed. It was a bitter, ugly sound, stripped of humor. "You think it's that simple? You think I can just walk away?" His voice rose, desperation leaking through the cracks. "The Volkovs will end me if I don't pay them. And I can't pay them without your money." "That sounds like a you problem," I said. "It's an everyone problem," he snapped, composure unraveling. "You don't understand what these people are capable of. They'll harm me. They'll go after Emily. They'll burn this house down with everyone in it. You think you're protecting your family? You're signing their death warrant." A sound from the top of the stairs cut through his rant. Emily stood there, pale as chalk, one hand gripping the banister so tightly her knuckles were white. She'd heard enough. "Brad," she said softly. "What's he talking about? What debt?" Brad spun toward her. "Emily, go back upstairs. This doesn't concern you." "Doesn't concern me?" Her voice shook, then hardened. "He just said people are going to come after me. What did you do?" "I did what I had to do to support us." Brad shouted. "Your father's business was failing. The money was running out. Someone had to take action." "That's a lie," I said immediately. "And you know it." Emily looked between us, searching for solid ground. "Daddy." "The business wasn't failing," I continued. "It was profitable. Stable. I showed him the books more than once. He forged documents to make it look like we were collapsing. He created panic so he could justify stealing." Brad shook his head wildly. "You don't know everything. You were distracted. Sick. Out of the loop." "I was distracted because you drugged me," I said. "You kept me sedated so you could move money without oversight." Emily staggered as if struck. "Drugged you?" Brad's silence was answer enough. "And your mother," I added. "He did the same to her. Told doctors she was deteriorating. Told you she was losing her mind." Emily turned slowly toward Brad, horror dawning in her eyes. "Mom wasn't sick?" "No," Brad said hoarsely. "She was difficult. I was managing a situation." "You were poisoning her," Emily said. "You were poisoning both of them." Brad's voice dropped, raw now. "I was trying to keep control. Things were spiraling. Once the Volkovs got involved, there was no backing out." "The Volkovs," Emily repeated. "Russian syndicate." He nodded once, defeated. 5 million. Compound interest. Missed deadlines. Threats that don't stay verbal. Emily let out a sound that might have been a sob or a laugh. "You got mixed up with those people, and you didn't tell me?" "I was protecting you." "No," she said, stepping down another stair. "You were protecting yourself." Brad turned back to me, panic etched into every line of his face. "You think this gun and your paperwork scare them? They don't care about leverage. They care about money. If you don't pay, they'll come. And if I do pay," I said, "they'll leave." Brad scoffed. "You can't just—" "I can," I interrupted. "Because unlike you, I don't lie about my resources. I have the money. I have channels. And I have people who understand how men like the Volkovs think." Emily stared at me. "You'd pay his debt?" "For your safety," I said. "Yes. With conditions." Brad's eyes lit with a desperate flicker of hope. "You'd really do that?" "I'd pay them," I said slowly. "Not you. And not without guarantees." "What kind of guarantees?" Emily asked. I didn't look away from Brad. A full confession. Written. Recorded. Witnessed. A legal separation that strips him of access to you and this family. And a binding agreement that if he ever contacts you again, the confession goes straight to the authorities. Brad swallowed hard. You'd ruin me. No, I said. You ruined yourself. I'm just deciding whether you do it quietly or loudly. Emily descended the last step and stood beside me. Her hands were shaking, but her voice wasn't. Is it true? She asked Brad one last time. Were you really planning to end my father? Brad opened his mouth, closed it, then nodded. I didn't see another way, he whispered. Emily took a step back, as if he'd struck her. Then you don't get to talk about protecting me. Ever again. Brad's shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of him, replaced by something smaller. Fear. Naked and unadorned. What if I say no? He asked quietly. I tightened my grip on the gun just enough for him to notice. Then this ends very differently. Silence settled over the basement, heavy and final. Brad looked at Emily, really looked at her, and seemed to understand at last that whatever he'd thought he was saving was already gone. Okay, he said. I'll confess. And in that moment, the balance shifted, not toward mercy, but toward control. By getting involved with the Russian syndicate? Emily descended the stairs slowly, one hand gripping the railing as if the house itself might tilt beneath her. Each step looked deliberate, controlled, but her voice trembled despite the effort. By stealing from my father? By... She stopped a few steps above the basement floor, eyes fixed on Brad. Brad, were you really going to end him? Of course not, Brad said too quickly. He's confused. The medication. Stop lying. Emily's voice cracked like a whip, sharp enough to make even me flinch. For once in your miserable life, stop lying to me. The basement went silent. The kind of silence that presses in on your ears, that makes every breath sound too loud. I watched Brad carefully. I'd spent decades negotiating with men who wore their danger openly. Brad was different. His danger lived in hesitation, in calculation. I could see his mind racing now, running scenarios, measuring risks. Fine, he said at last, his shoulders slumping as if surrendering to gravity. Fine. You want the truth. Emily didn't answer. She didn't have to. Yes, Brad continued, bitterness creeping into his voice. I owe money to some very bad people. Yes, I took your father's money to try to pay them back. And yes, I considered taking steps to access his life insurance. But I never actually did anything. I never hurt him. You dosed him, I said quietly. Brad turned on me. That's not. You dosed both of us, I continued. You were planning to keep us sedated and confused while you stole everything you could. And when that wasn't enough, you were going to stage my passing. Emily's head snapped toward me. Daddy. Her voice was small now. Fragile. Is that true? I reached into my pocket and pulled out one of the pills, still wrapped in a tissue. I tossed it gently toward her. She caught it on instinct, unwrapped it, and stared at the damp, partially dissolved medication in her palm. He gave me these tonight, I said. Told me they were heart medication. They're not. Your mother's been getting the same thing for months. Emily's face crumpled as if something inside her finally gave way. Brad, she whispered. Tell me he's lying. Brad said nothing. Tell me he's lying, she screamed, the sound tearing out of her chest. I was doing it for us. Brad finally exploded, the mask shattering completely. For our future. Your father was going to lose everything anyway. The company was bankrupt. The debts were piling up. I was just trying to salvage what I could before it all came crashing down. The company wasn't bankrupt, I said evenly. That was a lie. You forged documents to make it look that way. You liquidated assets that were perfectly sound. You created a crisis that didn't exist so you could justify stealing from me. Brad laughed, a wild, brittle sound. You think I wanted this? You think I woke up one day and decided to become the villain in your little family drama? I was drowning. I made one bad decision, then another. The Volkovs don't give extensions. They don't negotiate. Once you're in, you're in. So you decided to drag us down with you, Beatrice said from the stairs. Brad turned sharply. You. She descended slowly, one step at a time, no tremor in her movements now. The fragile woman he thought he controlled was gone. What remained was steel wrapped in quiet fury. You dosed me, she continued. You isolated me. You told doctors I was deteriorating. You whispered to my daughter that I was losing my mind. Also she would trust you instead of me. I was protecting her. Brad shot back. No, Beatrice said. You were silencing me. Emily looked at her mother, eyes wide. Mom, you knew. I knew enough, Beatrice replied. Enough to pretend. Enough to survive. Brad backed away a step, sweat beading on his forehead. You don't understand the pressure I was under. Every call, every message, they were counting down my life. I thought if I could just get enough money, everything would stop. And when it didn't, I asked. When stealing from me wasn't enough? His mouth opened, then closed again. That's when you decided I was expendable, I said. An obstacle between you and a clean slate. Emily shook her head, tears streaming freely now. I loved you, she said. I trusted you. I defended you against my own parents. Brad's voice softened, desperate. Emily, listen to me. I never wanted to hurt you. Everything I did was so we could survive this. Once the debt was gone, we could have left. Started over. You and me. She laughed then, a broken sound. You don't get it. There is no you and me anymore. There never was. There was just you, using everyone around you. The words hit him harder than any accusation. He sagged against the wall, rubbing his face with both hands. I can fix this, he said weakly. I can still fix this. No, I replied. You can't. You ran out of fixes the moment you decided taking a life was a viable option. Emily straightened, wiping her face with the back of her hand. When she spoke again, her voice was steady. You don't get to speak for my future, she said. You don't get to explain yourself anymore. You don't get forgiveness just because you're scared now. Brad looked at her, really looked at her, and whatever hope he'd been clinging to finally died. The basement felt colder somehow, as if the truth had sucked the warmth out of the air. Outside, dawn crept closer, indifferent to the ruin unfolding below. I had spent my life dealing with enemies who declared themselves openly. Brad was worse. He had smiled at us, slept under our roof, called himself family. And now, with every lie stripped away, he stood exposed for what he truly was. A man who mistook greed for necessity. A man who believed love could be anesthetized like a patient on a table. A man who was about to learn that some debts are never financial. I pulled out the bank statements from the offshore accounts and spread them across the table, letting the paper speak before I did. Numbers, dates, balances, clean, undeniable. These show my real financial position, I said calmly. 20 million in assets you couldn't touch. Money you never knew existed. I'm not broke, Brad. I'm wealthy. And you're a thief and a liar who got in over his head with dangerous people. Brad stared at the pages as if they might rearrange themselves into a different truth. His mouth opened, then closed again. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely lost. Emily sank down onto the stairs, her body folding in on itself. She buried her face in her hands. How could you? She whispered. How could you do this to my family? Your family. Brad laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. Your family was already broken, Emily. Your father vanished for weeks without a word. Your mother was losing her mind. I was the only one holding things together. The only adult in the room. My mother isn't losing her mind, I said quietly. She's been pretending. Brad turned on me. What? She's been playing a role, I continued. Staying quiet. Staying harmless. Gathering evidence while you underestimated her. She's upstairs right now, locked in that bathroom, completely lucid and completely aware of what you are. Brad's face shifted rapidly. Confusion, then disbelief, then something darker. Rage settled in his eyes like a storm cloud. That witch, he hissed. She's been faking it this whole time? I took a step toward him. Don't you dare call my wife that. She made me believe. His voice cracked, not with guilt but fury. All those months of dealing with her wandering around, acting unstable, that was all an act? An act that protected her, I said. Because she knew that if you realized she was aware, you would have ended her too. The words landed heavily, like a verdict. Emily's shoulders shook. She was crying now, silently, the kind of tears that come when grief has burned past screaming and left only ash. Brad looked at her, then away. His hand went to his pocket. He pulled out his phone. This is over, he said flatly. I'm calling the Volkovs. I'm telling them where you keep your money. They'll come here, take it, and maybe, they'll let me live. Do that, I said, not raising my voice, and they'll end everyone in this house, including Emily. He froze. His finger hovered just above the screen. You don't know that. I do, I replied. Men like them don't tolerate complications. They won't negotiate in a living room. They'll come in force. Loose ends get tied off permanently. Brad swallowed hard. Then what do you suggest? He demanded. Because I'm out of options. And I'm out of time. They're expecting payment in 2 weeks. If I don't deliver, I'm finished anyway. At least this way, maybe Emily survives. I turned to my daughter. She looked up at me, eyes red and wide, hope and desperation tangled together so tightly they were indistinguishable. I had built an empire by taking calculated risks. By stepping into uncertainty with more information than anyone else in the room. This was the biggest gamble of my life, and I felt its weight settle fully into my bones. You don't call them, I said. Not yet. Brad barked a laugh. Then what? You magically fix this. I pay them, I said. Your debt. In full. Emily gasped. Daddy. Brad's eyes lit up with something dangerously close to triumph. You'd do that? After everything? Yes, I said. But not the way you think. And not without conditions. His expression hardened again. I don't have leverage anymore. You don't, I agreed. Which is why you'll listen. I gathered the papers back into a neat stack. I'll pay the Volkovs directly, through channels they respect. No games. No delays. Enough to satisfy them that this matter is closed. In exchange, you sign a confession detailing everything you've done. Financial crimes. Fraud. Conspiracy. Attempted harm. All of it. Brad shook his head. You can't expect me to. I can, I interrupted. Because the alternative is you making that call and condemning your wife to perish alongside you. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. And after? He asked quietly. After, I said, you disappear from our lives. You divorce Emily. You walk away with just enough money to keep you alive and quiet. And you spend the rest of your life knowing that if you ever threaten this family again, that confession goes straight to the authorities. One envelope. One email. And everything ends. Emily stared at me. You'd trust him to leave? No, I said. I'd trust fear to keep him obedient. Brad lowered the phone slowly, his hand trembling now. You really think you can control this? I don't need to control everything, I replied. Just you. He looked at Emily, searching for something. Sympathy, forgiveness, weakness. He found none. She was watching him as if seeing him clearly for the first time, stripped of charm and excuses. "I never wanted this," he said weakly. "That's a lie," Beatrice's voice said from the doorway. We all turned. She stood there, pale but steady, eyes sharp, keys to the bathroom dangling from her fingers. "You wanted money," she continued. "You wanted power without earning it. And when you thought you'd won, you started planning how to erase the people who knew you were a fraud." Brad backed away as if struck. You were listening?" "I was watching," she said. "The whole time." Something in Brad finally broke. His shoulders sagged. The phone slipped from his hand and clattered onto the floor. "Okay," he said hoarsely. "Okay. Don't call them. Don't let them come here. I'll do it your way." I nodded once. Not in triumph. In acceptance. "Good," I said. "Because this is the last choice you'll ever get to make for this family." And for the first time since the nightmare began, I saw it clearly in his eyes. He knew it was true. "Put the phone down," I said. "I'll pay your debt." Brad's hand stopped. "What?" "I'll pay what you owe. All of it." "7 million, you said. You would do that? After everything?" "Not for you. For Emily. To keep her safe. But there are conditions." "Name them." "You sign a confession," I said, my voice steady, each word placed with care. "Full details of everything you've done. The forgeries. The theft. The drug conspiracy. The plan to end me. All of it. Names, dates, methods. Nothing held back. I hold that confession as insurance. You step out of line ever again, and it goes straight to the police and the FBI." Brad stared at me, jaw clenched, eyes flicking once toward the stairs as if calculating distance, exits, impossible miracles. "And?" he asked. "And you get a divorce," I continued. "You leave this family and never come back. You don't call. You don't write. You don't ask mutual friends for updates. You disappear. Emily gets everything in the settlement. The house, the accounts, the remaining assets. Everything that's left after your mess is cleaned up." Emily made a small sound and looked up at me. "Daddy, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," I said, cutting her off gently but firmly. "This man was planning to end me. He abused your mother. He stole from us and used our name to fund criminal operations. But if I can end this without violence, without bodies, without you living the rest of your life wondering when someone will come through the door, that's what I'll do. For you." Brad leaned back against the wall, arms crossed, eyes unfocused. I could see the calculations playing out behind his face. Prison or freedom? Exposure or silence? Harm by men like the Volkovs or a life spent running from paperwork and shame? Emily or survival? Minutes passed. No one spoke. "Fine," he said finally, the words scraped raw. "I'll sign your confession. I'll divorce Emily. But you pay the Volkovs first. All of it. I don't trust you to hold up your end otherwise." I nodded slowly, as if considering, though the answer had already been decided. "Fair enough. But the payment happens in stages." His eyes snapped back to me. "Stages? First million when you sign the confession," I said. "Second million when you sit down with Emily's lawyers and formally initiate the divorce. Final 5 million when the divorce is finalized and you are legally, financially, and physically out of our lives." "That could take months," Brad snapped. "The Volkovs want their money in 2 weeks." "Then you'd better convince them to accept a payment plan," I replied calmly. "I'll front you 3 million immediately if you agree to my terms. That should buy you time. If it doesn't, that's your problem. Not ours." Brad dragged his hands through his hair, fingers shaking now. The bravado was gone. The manipulation stripped away. What remained was a man who had run out of good lies. He looked older suddenly. Lines etched deeper into his face, shoulders sagging as if the weight of his own decisions had finally become physical. "Okay," he said quietly. Okay. I'll do it. Relief flickered across Emily's face for half a second before it hardened into something else. Something colder. We'll draw up the papers in the morning, I said. I want my lawyers present. I want Emily's lawyers present. And I want everything documented. Audio. Video. The works. You don't sign a single page without witnesses. Fine, Brad muttered. Whatever. He turned toward Emily, taking a hesitant step forward, his voice softening into something that might once have worked. I'm sorry, he said. I really am. I never meant for it to go this far. Emily stood up. She didn't rush. She didn't shout. She simply rose to her feet and faced him fully. Her face was dry now. No tears left. Her eyes were hard in a way that made my chest tighten with both pride and grief. Get out of my sight, she said. Emily, get out. The finality in her voice stopped him cold. Whatever apology he had prepared died in his throat. He nodded once, stiffly, and backed away as if she were the dangerous one now. He went upstairs without another word. The house felt different the moment he was gone. Lighter, somehow. As if a poison had finally stopped circulating. Emily sank back into her chair, hands clenched in her lap. Is it really over? She asked quietly. No, Beatrice said from the doorway. She had been watching everything, her expression unreadable. But it's controlled now. That's the difference. I nodded. He thinks he negotiated his freedom. What he actually did was agree to live the rest of his life on a leash. One mistake, one threat, one lie, and the confession destroys him. Emily looked up at me. You're sure this will keep us safe? As sure as anyone can be, I said. Nothing involving criminals is ever certain. But fear works both ways. Brad is afraid now. And fear makes people compliant. Beatrice stepped forward and placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. You did nothing wrong, she said softly. You loved someone who lied well. That's not weakness. That's humanity. Emily leaned into her mother, eyes closing briefly. Upstairs, a door closed. Brad packing, running, pretending he still had choices. Tomorrow, the lawyers would arrive. Tomorrow, signatures would be placed on documents that would define the rest of his life. Tomorrow, the first million would move, and the clock would start ticking. Brad thought he had escaped prison. What he didn't yet understand was that freedom built on fear is just another kind of sentence. Brad fled up the stairs. We heard his footsteps pound across the floor above, frantic and uneven, followed by the sharp slam of a door. The sound echoed through the house, final and hollow, like the closing of a coffin. Emily came down the rest of the stairs on unsteady legs and threw herself into my arms. The strength went out of her all at once. She sobbed against my chest, her whole body shaking, fingers clutching my jacket as if letting go might make the night come rushing back. I'm so sorry, Daddy, she cried. I'm so sorry I believed him. I should have known. I should have seen it. All the signs. I ignored them. Sure, I said, holding her tighter, one hand cradling the back of her head. It's okay. He's a con artist. A good one. That's the part people forget. The best ones don't look like villains. They look like answers. He fooled both of us for years. But Mom saw through him, she said, her voice breaking. Mom knew something was wrong. I didn't listen to her. I closed my eyes for a moment. Your mother is the smartest person I've ever known. She reads people the way other people read books. I should have trusted her instincts from the beginning. That's on me. We stood there in the basement, surrounded by concrete walls and the quiet hum of the house settling, holding each other as the night slowly loosened its grip. The small window near the ceiling began to lighten, the darkness thinning into gray. Morning crept in reluctantly, as if even the sun was unsure it wanted to witness what had happened here. When Emily's breathing finally steadied, I spoke. We need to get your mother out of that bathroom. She nodded, wiped her face with her sleeve, and stayed close to my side as we went upstairs. The hallway was eerily still. Brad's door at the top of the stairs was closed, silent. We ignored it and went straight to the bathroom at the end of the hall. The door was still locked, just as he'd left it. I knocked gently, deliberately. "Beatrice? It's safe. You can stop pretending now." For a moment, nothing happened. Then came the soft, unmistakable click of the lock turning. The door opened. Beatrice stood there, upright and composed. The vacant stare was gone. No drooping mouth, no glassy eyes. She looked tired, deeply so, but alert, present in a way she hadn't been in months. If anyone had still doubted her, one look at her face would have ended it. "I heard everything through the vents," she said calmly. "Sound carries in this house. You're going to pay his debt." "Only way to keep Emily safe," I replied. She studied me, her head tilting slightly, that familiar assessing look she'd worn our entire marriage. "And you trust him to hold up his end?" "No," I said without hesitation. "Which is why we're not doing any of this the way I told him." A slow smile crossed her face. Not amusement. Approval. "I knew you had a plan." "Always," I said. "But first, we need to get you both somewhere safe. Brad knows he's caught. Truly caught. Cornered animals are dangerous, and desperate men even more so. And once the Volkovs find out he's been working with us, they might come looking for their money in more aggressive ways." Emily stiffened. "They'd come here." "Not immediately," I said. "But eventually. Especially if Brad misses a payment, or lies, or panics and tries to disappear. People like that leave messes behind them." "Where would we go?" Emily asked. "I have a place," I said. "A secure apartment in the city. One Brad doesn't know about. I bought it years ago under a shell corporation. It was never meant to be a home. Just an exit. We'll stay there while the lawyers work and while I arrange for some additional security." "What kind of security?" Emily asked. Beatrice answered before I could. "The kind your father is very good at arranging." I didn't correct her. We moved quickly after that. Beatrice packed with precision, selecting only what mattered. Documents. Medications. A few photographs she slipped into her bag without comment. Emily packed more hesitantly, pausing often as if expecting the walls to start shouting accusations at her. I let her take the time she needed. Shock has its own rhythm. Before we left, I checked the house one last time. Brad's door remained closed. I didn't knock. I didn't speak his name. He no longer deserved either. Outside, the morning air was cool and deceptively peaceful. Birds chirped. A neighbor's car started down the street. The world was going about its business, blissfully unaware that a family had nearly been destroyed overnight. As we drove away, Emily stared out the window, her reflection ghosted in the glass. "He's going to hate us," she said softly. "He already does," Beatrice replied. "You don't betray someone like that unless you've been angry for a very long time." I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. Hate didn't concern me. Fear did. Fear makes men careless. Careless men make mistakes. And mistakes, in this situation, could get people ruined. The secure apartment waited downtown, silent and ready, just as it had for years. A place designed not for comfort, but for survival. As we merged into traffic, I felt the shift inside myself, the final click of a decision locking into place. Brad thought the worst night of his life was behind him. In truth, it was only just beginning. "The kind that makes sure the Volkovs understand that this family is off limits," I said, keeping my voice level. "I'm not without resources, Emily. I didn't build a shipping empire without learning how to handle dangerous people. Some threats are managed with money, others with reputation. The truly dangerous ones are handled with leverage." She studied my face, searching for doubt, for hesitation. She didn't find it. Whatever she saw there made her nod, slowly, as if accepting a truth she'd been avoiding since the night everything broke. We spent the next hour packing essentials. Not suitcases, bags that could be carried quickly, dropped if necessary, replaced if lost. Beatrice moved through the house like a soldier on a mission, methodical and efficient. She gathered passports, birth certificates, insurance papers, old photographs, a few pieces of jewelry that carried more history than value. She ignored everything else. Furniture, clothing, luxury, it all meant nothing now. Emily followed her lead. She was still in shock, her movements slightly delayed, but she functioned. She packed medications, chargers, a change of clothes, her laptop. When her hands started shaking, she paused, breathed, then continued. Survival leaves no room for indulgence. I retrieved the sat phone from the drawer where I'd hidden it years ago. The battery indicator blinked weakly but held steady long enough to make a connection. I stepped into the study, closed the door, and dialed a number I hadn't used in over a decade. "John." Harold Weinstein's voice came through, rough with sleep and irritation. "Is that you? Where the hell have you been? Your accounts have been going crazy. Transfers, freezes, alerts." "Harold, I need you to listen carefully," I said, cutting him off. "I need you at my secure apartment in 2 hours with a full legal team. Bring corporate contracts specialists. Bring criminal defense experts. And bring someone who knows how to deal with organized crime." There was silence on the other end. Not the confused kind. The calculating kind. "What did you get yourself into?" he asked finally. "I'll explain when you arrive. Just trust me. And Harold, bring notaries. Lots of them." "How many is lots?" "Enough to witness a full confession, a divorce agreement, and about 50 pages of legal documents that will destroy a man's life if he steps out of line." He exhaled audibly. "Jesus. John. What happened?" "My son-in-law tried to end me," I said. "Now I'm going to destroy him legally instead of physically. The second option is more complicated." Another pause. Then, without hesitation, "I'll be there in 90 minutes. I ended the call and stood there for a moment, the phone still warm in my hand. 30 years. That's how long it takes to build relationships you can rely on when the world starts burning. When I stepped back into the kitchen, Brad was standing at the counter, drinking coffee from one of my mugs. He looked like he hadn't slept. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw tense, shoulders slightly hunched as if bracing for impact. "Good. Fear suits him." "We're leaving," I said. He turned, startled. "What?" "Emily and Beatrice are coming with me," I continued. "You stay here. My lawyers will contact you at noon to arrange the signing." "Where are you going?" he asked, too quickly. "Somewhere you can't find us," I said. "Somewhere safe." His grip tightened on the mug. "I said I would sign your papers." "And I said I don't trust you," I replied. "So we're doing this on my terms, in my location, with my security." Emily appeared in the doorway behind me. She didn't look at Brad. She didn't need to. "You show up alone at the address my lawyer provides," I went on. "You sign everything. You walk away with $3 million. You convince the Volkovs to accept that as a down payment. And then you start counting down the days until you're out of our lives forever." "That's not what we agreed," Brad started. "That's exactly what we agreed," I interrupted. "You just didn't realize how narrow your options were." His jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he might argue, might try to bluff or threaten. Instead, he nodded. A sharp, economical movement. He understood power when he saw it. "Fine," he said. "I'll be there." "You'd better be," I replied. "Because if you're not, the money disappears, the Volkovs stop hearing from you, and the police start hearing from me." Repeatedly. He swallowed. "You don't need to threaten me." "I'm not threatening you," I said calmly. "I'm explaining the consequences of disappointing me." Beatrice entered then, carrying 2 bags. She didn't acknowledge Brad at all. She didn't have to. Her silence was sharper than any insult. We left 15 minutes later. No goodbyes. No final words. The house felt hollow as we walked out, like a stage after the actors have gone. I locked the door behind us, not because I expected to return, but because habits are hard to break. As the car pulled away, I checked the mirrors. Brad stood at the front window, watching us go. Smaller now. Already fading. This wasn't an escape. It was a repositioning. A step back before the closing move. By noon, he would be sitting alone in a room full of lawyers, signing his name onto pages that would define the rest of his life. By nightfall, the Volkovs would know their money was coming and that this family was no longer part of their world. And Brad would finally understand the difference between surviving a threat and surviving what comes after. We left in my old Mercedes, the one I kept in the third garage that Brad apparently didn't know about. Emily drove. I sat in the passenger seat, the gun in my lap. Beatrice was in the back, her eyes scanning every car we passed. "Do you think he'll actually go through with it?" Emily asked. "He doesn't have a choice. The Volkovs will destroy him if he doesn't pay. And the only way he gets the money is by cooperating with us." "But what happens after?" Emily asked, her voice barely steady as the city lights blurred past the car windows. "After he pays them and divorces me? What's to stop him from coming back?" "The confession," Beatrice said from the back seat, her tone calm in a way that only comes after fear has burned itself out. "And the fact that by then, your father will have made sure certain people know Brad's name and face. People who don't like thieves and murderers. People who remember." I glanced at her in the rear-view mirror. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap, posture straight despite the bruises that still hadn't faded from her wrists. "You've been thinking about this," I said. "I've had 3 months locked in a bathroom to think about it," she replied without hesitation. "Yes, I've been thinking about it. About contingencies. About what comes next. Fear gets boring after a while. Planning doesn't." The secure apartment was in a high-rise downtown, anonymous and forgettable from the outside. I had bought it 15 years ago under a shell corporation name, back when paranoia still felt like a professional hazard instead of a survival skill. Not even Emily knew about it. It was my emergency bolt hole, a place designed for disappearance rather than comfort, for waiting things out while the world rearranged itself. We rode the elevator to the 23rd floor in silence. No one spoke. The hum of the cables and the soft chime of passing floors filled the space between us. I watched the mirrored walls, half expecting to see someone else step in at the last moment. No one did. Inside, the apartment was sparse but livable. 2 bedrooms with neutral furniture. A compact kitchen stocked with long-life food. A living room dominated by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, the skyline glittering like nothing was wrong anywhere. "Stay away from the windows," I said immediately. "Don't call anyone. Don't post anything online. As far as the world is concerned, you don't exist for the next few days." Emily nodded, absorbing the rules with surprising speed. "What about Brad?" she asked. "Won't he tell people we're missing?" "Who would he tell?" I said. "He spent months convincing everyone that I was unstable, that Beatrice was senile, that he was the responsible one holding everything together. If he suddenly claims we vanished, it makes him look guilty. Desperate. He'll keep quiet and hope we keep our word about the money." That answer didn't comfort her, but it made sense. Sometimes logic is the closest thing fear has to relief. Harold arrived 90 minutes later, exactly on schedule, with a team that turned the quiet apartment into a temporary war room. 6 lawyers in tailored suits, 2 notaries with portable cases, and 1 man I didn't recognize. He stood slightly apart from the others, tall and bald, shoulders squared with the ease of someone who had learned long ago how to occupy space without apologizing for it. "This is Marcus Webb," Harold said. "Former FBI. Now consults on organized crime cases. When you said you needed someone who understands the Volkovs, I brought the best." Marcus shook my hand. His grip was firm, practiced, eyes sharp without being aggressive. "Mr. Prescott," he said. "Harold filled me in on the basics during the drive. Your son-in-law is either the bravest or the stupidest man I've ever heard of. The Volkovs don't mess around." "Can they be reasoned with?" I asked. Depends on the offer, Marcus replied. They're businessmen, in their own way. They want their money. They value predictability. If they get what they're owed, clean and on time, they usually consider the matter closed. But if they think they're being cheated or disrespected, they get creative with their revenge. That's when people disappear. So if I pay Brad's debt in full, I said, they'll leave my family alone? Marcus didn't answer immediately. He took a moment, scanning the room, the lawyers, the city beyond the glass. They'll leave the debt alone, he said finally. That's not the same thing. Which is why the payment can't come from you or your daughter. It needs to come from a buffer. A neutral party. Someone who makes it clear this is a one-time settlement, not the beginning of a relationship. And if Brad tries to involve them again? Marcus smiled, thin and humorless. Then we make sure the Volkovs understand that Brad is radioactive. That he brings law enforcement attention. That dealing with him costs more than it's worth. Organized crime thrives on shadows. You shine enough light, even they back away. The lawyers began laying out documents, the soft rustle of paper filling the room. Confessions. Divorce filings. Loan agreements. Each page was a thread, and together they formed a net designed to tighten slowly, inevitably. Emily watched it all with wide eyes. You've planned for everything, she said quietly. Not everything, I replied. Just the most likely disasters. Marcus leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. One more thing, he said. After this is done, Brad doesn't just disappear financially. He disappears socially. Professionally. Certain people will know what he is. He'll find doors closing that he didn't even realize were open before. That's how you make sure he doesn't come back. Beatrice met his gaze and nodded once. No fear. No hesitation. Only resolve. Outside, the city kept moving, unaware that a man's future was being dismantled piece by piece, not with violence, but with signatures, silence, and the promise that some debts, once paid, never truly go away. Probably. But I'd recommend a buffer, Marcus said, leaning back in his chair as if discussing something as ordinary as hiring a courier. His fingers steepled, eyes sharp and calculating. A neutral party to make the payment. Someone unconnected to you, someone who can make it clear this is a one-time deal. No misunderstandings. No follow-up calls. And very explicit language about what happens if anyone from their side even thinks about contacting your family again. What kind of consequences? I asked, already knowing the answer would be unpleasant. Marcus smiled. It wasn't a warm smile or even a cruel one. It was professional. Detached. The kind that involve federal prosecution, he said calmly. I still have friends at the Bureau. A few well-placed calls about the Volkovs' operation, some anonymous tips dropped into the right inboxes, a couple of financial irregularities suddenly noticed, and they'll find themselves drowning in subpoenas. Once that happens, they won't have time to worry about one paid debt. They'll be too busy trying to stay out of prison. You'd do that? Emily asked, her voice tight. For the right price, Marcus replied without hesitation. And because I don't like seeing families terrorized by gangsters. It's bad for business. Both theirs and mine. Harold cleared his throat and began spreading papers across the dining room table, transforming it into a battlefield of documents, spreadsheets, and legal pads. John, we need to slow down and go through this carefully, he said, tapping a pen against the wood. You're about to commit $7 million to paying off a criminal debt. That's money laundering territory. Financial crimes. Aiding and abetting organized crime. If this goes wrong, you're not just losing money. You're facing federal charges. Then make sure it doesn't go wrong, I said evenly. Structure it so the money moves through legitimate channels. Make it look like a business loan. Or an investment that collapsed. Or a settlement tied to an unrelated contract dispute. Whatever it takes to keep us clean. It's not that simple. Harold, I cut in, meeting his eyes. I have $20 million in offshore accounts that Brad never found. I have legitimate businesses in 6 countries. I have shipping contracts, shell corporations, trade agreements, and more legal cover than most Fortune 500 companies. You didn't build your career playing by the obvious rules. Find a way to make this work. Harold stared at me for a long moment, then exhaled slowly. His shoulders sagged as if the decision physically weighed on him. It'll take some creative accounting, he said at last. The kind that gives auditors headaches and prosecutors ulcers. But yes, I can make it work. We spent the next 3 hours crafting the most comprehensive legal trap I had ever seen. Every document served two purposes: protection and punishment. The confession came first, brutally thorough, detailing every one of Brad's crimes in his own words. Fraud, embezzlement, assault, attempted harm. It was signed, notarized, and witnessed by multiple lawyers whose reputations alone would make any judge pause. The divorce agreement followed, ruthless in its precision. It stripped Brad of every asset acquired during the marriage. Accounts, properties, investments, future royalties. Anything with his name on it and a traceable link to Emily was transferred, frozen, or forfeited. What remained was barely enough to qualify as a life. Then came the loan documents. $7 million, issued personally to Brad, not to any company or intermediary. The interest rate was technically legal but functionally devastating. The repayment schedule stretched across 2 decades, designed so that missing even one payment would trigger cascading penalties. He'll never be able to repay this, Emily said quietly, her fingers tracing the dense paragraphs as she read. He's not supposed to, I replied. The point isn't repayment. It's memory. Leverage. It's making sure he wakes up every day knowing he owes us. That we own his future. And that if he ever threatens this family again, we can bankrupt him with a single phone call. She looked up at me, conflicted. It's cruel. It's justice, I said, my voice steady. He tried to end me. He mistreated your mother. He stole from us. This is mercy compared to what he deserves. By noon, everything was in place. Brad showed up at the address Harold had provided, exactly on time, as if punctuality could somehow redeem him. A neutral office building downtown. Glass and steel, anonymous and forgettable. 3rd floor meeting room. Beige walls. Fluorescent lights. No windows. We didn't meet him at the door. We watched him enter through the building's security cameras, the feed streaming on Marcus's tablet. He looked smaller than I remembered. Thinner. His suit hung poorly on his frame, and his tie was crooked, hands trembling as he checked in with reception. There, Marcus said softly, zooming in on the screen. That's a man who knows the ground is about to disappear beneath his feet. Brad stepped into the elevator, unaware that every second from that moment forward had been engineered. The doors closed. The screen went briefly dark. When they opened again on the 3rd floor, the trap was already waiting. He's alone, Marcus confirmed. No visible weapons. No obvious tail. He's either playing it straight or he's extremely good at hiding backup. He's desperate, I said. Desperate people follow instructions. Brad looked terrible. He hadn't shaved. His suit was wrinkled. His hands shook as he signed each document, barely reading them. He knew he had no choice. When it was done, Harold handed him a bank statement showing a transfer of $3 million to an account in Brad's name. The Volkov's payment information is on the 2nd page, Harold said. You wire them this money today. You explain that this is a down payment, and the rest will come in installments as you meet the conditions we've outlined. Marcus here will facilitate the communication. Brad looked at Marcus. You're going to talk to them? I'm going to make sure they understand the situation, Marcus said. That this is a legitimate debt repayment. That Mr. Prescott is acting in good faith. And that any retaliation against his family would be unwise. They're not going to accept a payment plan. Then you'd better be very persuasive. Because this is the only offer you're getting. Brad took the papers and left. We watched him on the cameras, walking slowly to his car like a man heading to his own undoing. Think he'll actually do it? Harold asked. 50-50, Marcus said. Either he pays them and hopes they take the deal, or he runs. If he runs, they'll track him down. Either way, your family is out of it. What if he tells them about the offshore accounts? About the money I still have? Then I'll make sure the Volkovs know that money is protected by so many legal structures that trying to access it would bring down federal attention they can't afford. The Volkovs are many things, but they're not stupid. They won't risk their entire operation for one debt. We waited. An hour passed. Then 2. Finally, Marcus's phone rang. He answered, listened, then hung up. The Volkovs received the $3 million. They're willing to accept installment payments for the remaining $4 million, with interest. Brad has 6 months to deliver the first $1 million, then monthly payments after that. Will he be able to do it? Not with what he currently has. Which means he'll have to get a real job. Work hard. Live lean. It'll be good for him. And if he defaults, then the Volkovs will handle him. And we won't have to worry about him anymore. It was a cold calculus. But it was also practical. Brad had made his choices. Now he would live with the consequences. Over the next 2 weeks, things moved quickly. Emily filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and providing evidence of financial fraud. Brad didn't contest it. He couldn't afford a legal battle, not when he was trying to scrape together payments to Russian gangsters. Beatrice and I moved back into our house. Brad had cleared out his things and disappeared. Emily heard through friends that he was living in a studio apartment across town, working 2 jobs to make his payments. Do you feel bad for him? Emily asked me one evening. We were having dinner together, just the 3 of us. Our first family meal in months. No, I said honestly. He made his choices. He could have come to me when he got in trouble. He could have asked for help. Instead, he chose to steal and lie and scheme. He chose to harm your mother. He chose to plan my demise. I don't feel bad for him at all. I feel like I should, Emily said. I loved him once. Or I thought I did. Now I'm not sure I ever really knew him. That's the nature of con artists, Beatrice said. They show you who you want to see. The real person is hidden underneath layers of lies and manipulation. How did you see through him, Mom? Instinct. And time. You see a lot when people think you're not paying attention. When they think you're too senile to understand what's happening around you. That must have been terrifying. Pretending for so long. It was. But it was also empowering. I knew I was smarter than he thought I was. I knew I was gathering evidence. I knew that when John came back, we would have everything we needed to stop him. What if Dad hadn't come back? Emily asked quietly. Beatrice and I exchanged a glance. Then I would have stopped him myself, she said. One way or another. Your father gave me some tools before he left. Tools I could have used if necessary. What kind of tools? The kind we're not going to talk about at dinner, I said firmly. Let's just say your mother is more resourceful than Brad ever imagined. We ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Emily spoke again. What happens now? To us, I mean. Do we just go back to normal? There is no normal, I said. Normal ended when Brad decided to destroy this family. Now we rebuild. We heal. We move forward. I'm going back to school, Emily announced. I gave up my PhD program when I married Brad. He said I didn't need it. That his career would be enough for both of us. I was stupid to listen. You weren't stupid, Beatrice said firmly. You were in love. Love makes us all do foolish things sometimes. What will you study? I asked. Criminal justice. Maybe law. I want to understand how people like Brad operate. How they manipulate the legal system. How they get away with things for so long. She looked at me. And I want to help other people who get caught in situations like ours. That's a good goal, I said. I'll pay for the program. Whatever you need. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You're my daughter. Supporting your dreams is literally my job. It's the one job I never get to retire from. Emily smiled. It was the first real smile I had seen from her in weeks. But the peace didn't last long. 3 weeks after Brad moved out, Marcus called me. His voice was tense. We have a problem. Brad missed his first payment to the Volkovs. My stomach dropped. How much was he short? All of it. He didn't pay anything. And he's not answering his phone. You think he ran? I think he did something monumentally stupid. The Volkovs are not happy. They're asking questions about where he got the initial $3 million. They're asking about you. What did you tell them? Nothing yet. But John, if Brad has disappeared with their money, they're going to come looking for answers. And you're the most obvious person to ask. I have documentation showing the $3 million was a loan to Brad. That I'm not responsible for his debts beyond what I already provided. Documentation doesn't matter to the Volkovs. They care about money. And right now, you're the only person they know who has it. I hung up and immediately called Harold. We need to accelerate our defenses. Legal barriers between my assets and anyone looking for Brad's money. Can it be done? It's already in progress. But John, if the Volkovs decide to get physical, no amount of legal protection will help. Then we need physical protection too. Marcus can arrange that. He says he can. But it won't be cheap. I don't care about cheap. I care about keeping my family safe. The next morning, a black SUV appeared outside our house. 2 men in suits got out and positioned themselves by the driveway. Marcus had sent his people. This is ridiculous, Emily said, looking out the window. We can't live like this, with armed guards and constant fear. It's temporary, I said, until we find Brad and figure out what he's done. But I didn't know if that was true. The truth was, I had unleashed something when I paid that first $3 million. I had shown the Volkovs that I had money, that I was willing to spend it. And now they knew my name. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Brad. Where had he gone? Why had he run? He had to know the Volkovs would come after him. He had to know this would make everything worse. Unless that was the point. The thought hit me like a freight train. What if Brad running was part of a plan? What if he wanted the Volkovs to focus on me instead of him? What if he was trying to force me to pay his entire debt by making me the target? It was brilliant in a terrible way. And it was exactly the kind of desperate, selfish move Brad would make. I got up and went to my office. I called Marcus, not caring that it was 3 in the morning. Brad didn't run, I said when he answered. He's hiding. He wants the Volkovs to threaten me, to force me to pay his debt in full to protect my family. Marcus was quiet for a moment. That's actually pretty smart. Diabolical, but smart. Can we find him? I can try. But if he's gone underground, it could take time. We don't have time. The Volkovs are already asking questions. Then we need to go on offense. We need to make it clear to the Volkovs that you're not their payday. That Brad is solely responsible for his debt. How? Leave that to me. But John, this is going to get ugly. The next day, Marcus arranged a meeting. Not with the Volkovs directly, but with one of their representatives. A man named Dmitri. The same Dmitri from Brad's text messages. We met in a warehouse on the waterfront. My kind of territory. I had spent 40 years working in places like this. Marcus and 2 of his people came with me. Dmitri was younger than I expected. Maybe 40. Well-dressed. He could have been a banker or a lawyer. Only his eyes gave him away. They were cold. Calculating. The eyes of a man who had seen terrible things and done worse. Mr. Prescott, he said, offering his hand. I didn't take it. We have a mutual problem. Brad Thompson is your problem, not mine. Brad Thompson owes us money. You paid part of that debt. That makes you involved. I paid $3 million to help my son-in-law. That was a one-time gesture. His remaining debt is his own responsibility. But he has disappeared. And you are still here. With money. And family that you care about. Dmitri smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Do you see the problem? I see that you're threatening my family. That's a mistake. Is it? Dmitri walked slowly around the warehouse. His footsteps echoed. You are a wealthy man, Mr. Prescott. $7 million is nothing to you. You could pay Brad's debt and never notice the money was gone. Why would you not do this simple thing to protect your family? Because it's not my debt. Because Brad Thompson is a thief and a con artist who made his own mistakes. And because I don't negotiate with criminals. Criminals? Dmitri laughed. You ran a shipping company for 40 years. You think I don't know what that means? The bribes you paid to port officials? The deals you made with warlords in Africa? The containers you didn't inspect too carefully when the price was right? You are no saint, Mr. Prescott. He was right. Not about everything, but about enough. I had operated in gray areas. Made morally questionable decisions. Looked the other way when it was convenient. But I had never ended anyone. Never stolen from family. Never threatened children. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to leave my family alone. You're going to focus your efforts on finding Brad Thompson. And when you find him, you're going to collect your debt from him, not me. And if I refuse? Then Marcus here will make a phone call. And tomorrow morning, the FBI will receive a very detailed package about your operations. Names, dates, bank accounts. Enough evidence to put you and everyone you work with away for decades. Dmitri's smile faded. You would do that? Risk retaliation. I would do that to protect my family. Without hesitation. We stared at each other. The warehouse was silent except for the distant sound of water lapping against the docks. You have nerve, old man, Dmitri finally said. I respect that. But you are making a dangerous enemy. You're making a worse one. I know this city. I know its ports, its businesses, its underground economy. I can make your operations very difficult. Or I can stay out of your way. Your choice. Dmitri considered this. You pay $4 million more. The balance of Brad's debt. We forget about him. We forget about you. Everyone moves on. $1 million. Final offer. You take it as final payment and we're done. Brad's debt is satisfied. Your organization stays out of my business, and everyone walks away. That is not enough. It's all you're getting. Take it or take the FBI investigation. Those are your only options. Dmitri pulled out his phone. He spoke rapid Russian to someone, too fast for me to follow. A conversation happened. Then he hung up. $3 million, he said. Final counter offer. You pay $3 million today. We consider the debt paid. We have no further business with you or Brad Thompson. I thought about it. $3 million more on top of the $3 I had already paid. $6 million total to make this problem go away. To protect my family. To be done with this nightmare. Done, I said. But I want documentation. A contract stating that Brad Thompson's debt is paid in full. That no member of my family will be contacted or threatened by your organization ever again. And that this agreement is binding on all levels of your operation. You want a receipt from the Russian syndicate? Dmitri laughed. You are crazy. I want proof. Something I can hold over you if you violate our agreement. You get your money, I get my insurance policy. Everyone has leverage. Everyone stays honest. Dmitri made another call. More Russian. Then, fine. We will provide documentation. But Mr. Prescott? If you ever show this document to law enforcement, If you ever try to use it against us, there will be consequences. Not to you. Too easy. To everyone you care about. Do you understand? I understand. The document stays private unless you violate our agreement. Mutually assured destruction. Very well. The money will be wired to the account you specify within the hour. $3 million. US dollars. Clean and traceable to a legitimate business transaction. Legitimate. I'm buying a non-existent cargo shipment from a shell company you control. All documented. All taxed. All legal on paper. That's how this works if you want clean money. Dmitri smiled again. This time it almost reached his eyes. You would have done well in my business, Mr. Prescott. I prefer my business. Less violence. Better retirement plan. We shook hands. The deal was done. Marcus and I left the warehouse and walked to my car. His people formed a protective triangle around us. That was either very brave or very stupid, Marcus said. Probably both. Can they be trusted? The Volkovs keep their word when it's in their interest. And you just made it very much in their interest to leave you alone. The FBI threat was good. They know you could actually make that happen. Because I can. I have 40 years of contacts in federal law enforcement. Customs officials. Port security. People who owe me favors. Use those favors wisely. Because you just made enemies of some very dangerous people. I transferred the money that afternoon. $3 million to a shell company in Cyprus that Marcus confirmed was controlled by the Volkovs. Within 24 hours, I received a scanned document, written in Russian and English, stating that the debt of Brad Thompson was paid in full, that the Volkov organization had no further claim on Bradley Thompson or the Prescott family. Signed by someone named Yuri Volkov. Witnessed by Dmitri and 2 other men whose names I didn't recognize. I had my receipt from the Russian syndicate. It was possibly the strangest document I had ever owned. But it also meant my family was safe. $6 million to buy safety. Not the wisest investment I had ever made, but far from the worst. Now I just had to find Brad. He surfaced 2 months later. Not in person, but on social media. Emily showed me the post. Brad standing on a beach somewhere tropical. Smiling. Tanned. Looking relaxed and happy. Costa Rica, Emily said. He's in Costa Rica. Living like he doesn't have a care in the world. He doesn't. I paid his debt. The Volkovs have no reason to chase him anymore. So he wins. He destroys our family, steals from you, nearly gets us all ruined, and he gets to retire on a beach. He gets to live in exile. Never able to come home. Always looking over his shoulder. Wondering if someone from his past will find him. That's not winning. That's a different kind of prison. But Emily was right to be angry. Brad had gotten away with too much. Yes, he lost his wife, his home, his place in society. Yes, he would spend his life as a fugitive from consequences. But he was alive. Free. Living off money he had stolen. That wasn't justice. That was just ending. I thought about this for weeks. Months. Beatrice and I settled back into a routine. Emily started her graduate program. The security guards eventually went away. Life returned to something resembling normal. But I couldn't let it go. Couldn't accept that Brad was out there, unpunished, living off his crimes. So I made some calls. To old contacts. To people who specialized in finding people who didn't want to be found. I put together a dossier on Brad Thompson. His crimes. His debts. His location in Costa Rica. And I sent that dossier to the IRS. To the FBI. To Interpol. To Costa Rican authorities. I also sent it to some of Brad's creditors. The people he had borrowed from before he got involved with the Volkovs. Credit card companies. Banks. Individuals he had scammed over the years. Within 6 weeks, Brad's paradise became much less comfortable. Interpol issued a red notice. The IRS filed charges for tax evasion and money laundering. Costa Rican police started asking questions about his visa status and source of income. "That's a good goal," I said. "I'll pay for the program. Whatever you need." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. You're my daughter. Supporting your dreams is literally my job. It's the one job I never get to retire from." Emily smiled. It was the first real smile I had seen from her in weeks. But the peace didn't last long. 3 weeks after Brad moved out, Marcus called me. His voice was tense. "We have a problem. Brad missed his first payment to the Volkovs." My stomach dropped. How much was he short? All of it. He didn't pay anything. And he's not answering his phone. "You think he ran?" "I think he did something monumentally stupid. The Volkovs are not happy. They're asking questions about where he got the initial $3 million. They're asking about you." "What did you tell them?" "Nothing yet. But John, if Brad has disappeared with their money, they're going to come looking for answers. And you're the most obvious person to ask. I have documentation showing the $3 million was a loan to Brad. That I'm not responsible for his debts beyond what I already provided. Documentation doesn't matter to the Volkovs. They care about money. And right now, you're the only person they know who has it." I hung up and immediately called Harold. "We need to accelerate our defenses. Legal barriers between my assets and anyone looking for Brad's money. Can it be done?" "It's already in progress. But John, if the Volkovs decide to get physical, no amount of legal protection will help." "Then we need physical protection too. Marcus can arrange that. He says he can. But it won't be cheap. I don't care about cheap. I care about keeping my family safe." The next morning, a black SUV appeared outside our house. 2 men in suits got out and positioned themselves by the driveway. Marcus had sent his people. "This is ridiculous," Emily said, looking out the window. "We can't live like this. With armed guards and constant fear." "It's temporary," I said. "Until we find Brad and figure out what he's done." But I didn't know if that was true. The truth was, I had unleashed something when I paid that first $3 million. I had shown the Volkovs that I had money. That I was willing to spend it. And now they knew my name. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Brad. Where had he gone? Why had he run? He had to know the Volkovs would come after him. He had to know this would make everything worse. Unless that was the point. The thought hit me like a freight train. What if Brad running was part of a plan? What if he wanted the Volkovs to focus on me instead of him? What if he was trying to force me to pay his entire debt by making me the target? It was brilliant in a terrible way. And it was exactly the kind of desperate, selfish move Brad would make. I got up and went to my office. I called Marcus, not caring that it was 3 in the morning. "Brad didn't run," I said when he answered. "He's hiding. He wants the Volkovs to threaten me, to force me to pay his debt in full to protect my family." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "That's actually pretty smart. Diabolical, but smart. Can we find him?" "I can try. But if he's gone underground, it could take time." "We don't have time. The Volkovs are already asking questions." "Then we need to go on offense. We need to make it clear to the Volkovs that you're not their payday. That Brad is solely responsible for his debt." "How?" "Leave that to me." "But John, this is going to get ugly." The next day, Marcus arranged a meeting. Not with the Volkovs directly, but with one of their representatives. A man named Dmitri. The same Dmitri from Brad's text messages. We met in a warehouse on the waterfront. My kind of territory. I had spent 40 years working in places like this. Marcus and 2 of his people came with me. Dmitri was younger than I expected. Maybe 40. Well-dressed. He could have been a banker or a lawyer. Only his eyes gave him away. They were cold, calculating. The eyes of a man who had seen terrible things and done worse. "Mr. Prescott," he said, offering his hand. I didn't take it. "We have a mutual problem. Brad Thompson is your problem, not mine. Brad Thompson owes us money. You paid part of that debt. That makes you involved. I paid $3 million to help my son-in-law. That was a one-time gesture. His remaining debt is his own responsibility. But he has disappeared. And you are still here. With money. And family that you care about." Dmitri smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Do you see the problem? I see that you're threatening my family. That's a mistake." "Is it?" Dmitri walked slowly around the warehouse. His footsteps echoed. "You are a wealthy man, Mr. Prescott. $7 million is nothing to you. You could pay Brad's debt and never notice the money was gone. Why would you not do this simple thing to protect your family?" "Because it's not my debt. Because Brad Thompson is a thief and a con artist who made his own mistakes. And because I don't negotiate with criminals." "Criminals?" Dmitri laughed. "You ran a shipping company for 40 years. You think I don't know what that means? The bribes you paid to port officials? The deals you made with warlords in Africa? The containers you didn't inspect too carefully when the price was right? You are no saint, Mr. Prescott." He was right. Not about everything, but about enough. I had operated in gray areas. Made morally questionable decisions. Looked the other way when it was convenient. But I had never ended anyone. Never stolen from family. Never threatened children. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "You're going to leave my family alone. You're going to focus your efforts on finding Brad Thompson. And when you find him, you're going to collect your debt from him, not me. And if I refuse? Then Marcus here will make a phone call. And tomorrow morning, the FBI will receive a very detailed package about your operations. Names, dates, bank accounts. Enough evidence to put you and everyone you work with away for decades." Dmitri's smile faded. "You would do that? Risk retaliation?" "I would do that to protect my family." Without hesitation. We stared at each other. The warehouse was silent except for the distant sound of water lapping against the docks. "You have nerve, old man," Dmitri finally said. "I respect that. But you are making a dangerous enemy. You're making a worse one. I know this city. I know its ports, its businesses, its underground economy. I can make your operations very difficult. Or I can stay out of your way. Your choice." Dmitri considered this. "You pay $4 million more. The balance of Brad's debt. We forget about him. We forget about you. Everyone moves on. $1 million. Final offer. You take it as final payment and we're done. Brad's debt is satisfied, your organization stays out of my business, and everyone walks away." "That is not enough. It's all you're getting. Take it or take the FBI investigation. Those are your only options." Dmitri pulled out his phone. He spoke rapid Russian to someone, too fast for me to follow. A conversation happened. Then he hung up. $3 million, he said. "Final counter offer. You pay $3 million today. We consider the debt paid. We have no further business with you or Brad Thompson." I thought about it. $3 million more on top of the 3 I had already paid. $6 million total to make this problem go away. To protect my family. To be done with this nightmare. "Done," I said. "But I want documentation. A contract stating that Brad Thompson's debt is paid in full. That no member of my family will be contacted or threatened by your organization ever again. And that this agreement is binding on all levels of your operation." "You want a receipt from the Russian syndicate?" Dmitri laughed. "You are crazy. I want proof. Something I can hold over you if you violate our agreement. You get your money, I get my insurance policy. Everyone has leverage. Everyone stays honest. Dmitri made another call. More Russian. Then, fine. We will provide documentation. But Mr. Prescott? If you ever show this document to law enforcement, if you ever try to use it against us, there will be consequences. Not to you. Too easy. To everyone you care about. Do you understand? I understand. The document stays private unless you violate our agreement. Mutually assured destruction. Very well. The money will be wired to the account you specify within the hour. $3 million. US dollars. Clean and traceable to a legitimate business transaction. Legitimate. I'm buying a non-existent cargo shipment from a shell company you control. All documented. All taxed. All legal on paper. That's how this works if you want clean money. Dmitri smiled again. This time it almost reached his eyes. You would have done well in my business, Mr. Prescott. I prefer my business. Less conflict. Better retirement plan. We shook hands. The deal was done. Marcus and I left the warehouse and walked to my car. His people formed a protective triangle around us. That was either very brave or very stupid, Marcus said. Probably both. Can they be trusted? The Volkovs keep their word when it's in their interest. And you just made it very much in their interest to leave you alone. The FBI threat was good. They know you could actually make that happen. Because I can. I have 40 years of contacts in federal law enforcement. Customs officials. Port security. People who owe me favors. Use those favors wisely. Because you just made enemies of some very dangerous people. I transferred the money that afternoon. $3 million to a shell company in Cyprus that Marcus confirmed was controlled by the Volkovs. Within 24 hours, I received a scanned document, written in Russian and English, stating that the debt of Brad Thompson was paid in full, that the Volkov organization had no further claim on Bradley Thompson or the Prescott family. Signed by someone named Yuri Volkov. Witnessed by Dmitri and 2 other men whose names I didn't recognize. I had my receipt from the Russian syndicate. It was possibly the strangest document I had ever owned. But it also meant my family was safe. $6 million to buy safety. Not the wisest investment I had ever made, but far from the worst. Now I just had to find Brad. He surfaced 2 months later. Not in person, but on social media. Emily showed me the post. Brad standing on a beach somewhere tropical. Smiling. Tanned. Looking relaxed and happy. Costa Rica, Emily said. He's in Costa Rica. Living like he doesn't have a care in the world. He doesn't. I paid his debt. The Volkovs have no reason to chase him anymore. So he wins. He destroys our family, steals from you, nearly gets us all ruined, and he gets to retire on a beach. He gets to live in exile. Never able to come home. Always looking over his shoulder. Wondering if someone from his past will find him. That's not winning. That's a different kind of prison. But Emily was right to be angry. Brad had gotten away with too much. Yes, he lost his wife, his home, his place in society. Yes, he would spend his life as a fugitive from consequences. But he was alive. Free. Living off money he had stolen. That wasn't justice. That was just ending. I thought about this for weeks. Months. Beatrice and I settled back into a routine. Emily started her graduate program. The security guards eventually went away. Life returned to something resembling normal. But I couldn't let it go. Couldn't accept that Brad was out there, unpunished, living off his crimes. So I made some calls. To old contacts. To people who specialized in finding people who didn't want to be found. I put together a dossier on Brad Thompson. His crimes. His debts. His location in Costa Rica. And I sent that dossier to the IRS, to the FBI, to Interpol, to Costa Rican authorities. I also sent it to some of Brad's creditors, the people he had borrowed from before he got involved with the Volkovs. Credit card companies, banks, individuals he had scammed over the years. Within 6 weeks, Brad's paradise became much less comfortable. Interpol issued a red notice. The IRS filed charges for tax evasion and money laundering. Costa Rican police started asking questions about his visa status and source of income. And his creditors started filing civil suits. Lots of them. Enough to ensure that even if Brad avoided criminal charges, he would spend the rest of his life dealing with lawsuits and judgments. Emily found out what I had done. She came to my office, her face a mixture of anger and admiration. "You couldn't just let it go, could you?" "No, I couldn't. He hurt this family. He hurt your mother. He tried to end me. Someone had to make sure he faced consequences. He's going to prison, maybe for years. Good. That's where he belongs. And if he tries to retaliate, if he tells authorities things about your businesses, things that might not look good in court, then I'll deal with that too." But Emily, I spent 40 years building an empire by being smarter than my competition. Brad Thompson is not smarter than me. He's not even close. Whatever revenge he tries to take, I'll be 3 steps ahead of him. Emily sat down. "You're scary when you're like this, Dad." "I'm a father protecting his family. That's not scary. That's primal." 6 months later, Brad was extradited to the United States. The federal charges were serious. Multiple counts of fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion. His lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the evidence was overwhelming. The paper trail I had helped construct through the legal documents he signed left no room for doubt. He went to trial. I didn't attend. Beatrice and Emily didn't attend. We had moved on with our lives. But we heard the verdict, guilty on all counts. Sentencing, 15 years in federal prison. Emily came to dinner that night and told us the news. She didn't look happy or sad, just resolved. "It's over," she said. "Yes," I agreed. "It's over. Do you feel better? Now that he's going to prison?" "I feel safe. I feel like justice was served." "Better? That's a different question." "What if you had done things differently?" Emily asked. "What if you had just let him go to prison without paying the Volkovs? Without all the complicated legal maneuvering? Then the Volkovs would have come after this family. They would have threatened you, maybe hurt you, maybe worse. I did what I had to do to keep you safe. Even though it cost you $6 million? That money is nothing compared to your safety, to your mother's safety. I would have paid 10 times that amount without hesitation." Beatrice reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're a good man, John Prescott. A complicated man, but a good one. I'm a man who protects his family. Nothing more, nothing less." We finished dinner. Talked about other things. Emily's classes. Beatrice's book club. My plans to maybe, possibly, finally retire from the shipping business. Life went on. Scars healed. Trust was slowly rebuilt. But I never forgot what Brad Thompson did to us. Never forgot the sight of my wife sleeping on a doormat in the rain. Never forgot the cold calculation in his voice when he talked about ruining me for insurance money. Those memories stayed with me. Sharp, clear, unforgiving. Some people say revenge is wrong, that it poisons the soul, that the best revenge is living well and moving on. Those people are fools. The best revenge is making sure the person who hurt you faces real consequences. Legal consequences. Financial consequences. The kind of consequences that reshape their entire life. Brad Thompson will spend the next 15 years in a federal prison. When he gets out, he'll be in his 50s. Unemployable. Broke. With a criminal record that will follow him forever. And every day, he'll remember that he could have just asked for help. Could have come to me honestly when he got in trouble with the Volkovs. Could have been part of this family instead of trying to destroy it. But he chose differently. He chose crime. He chose harm. He chose betrayal. And now he lives with those choices. In a cell. With no expensive shoes. No designer suits. No Costa Rican beaches. Just consequences. That's not revenge. That's justice. And justice, I've learned, is the only way to truly move on. A year after Brad's conviction, Beatrice and I were having coffee on our patio. The sun was warm. The garden was blooming. Everything felt peaceful. Do you ever think about what you would have done differently? Beatrice asked. Every day. But I can't change the past. I can only learn from it. And what have you learned? That family is everything. That money means nothing if the people you love aren't safe. That trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. I looked at her. And that you are the smartest, bravest person I have ever known. 3 months pretending to be senile while gathering evidence. That took incredible courage. I did what I had to do. Same as you. We make a good team. The best, Beatrice agreed. Now, are you going to tell me about that phone call you had this morning? The one with the lawyers. I smiled. She never missed anything. The civil suits against Brad are proceeding. His assets, what's left of them, are being liquidated to pay his victims. Emily will get her share as part of the divorce settlement. It won't make her rich, but it will help with school. And the rest goes to pay back the people he scammed before he got involved with the Volkovs. Credit card debt, personal loans, business obligations. He destroyed a lot of lives. Now they get some compensation. You coordinated that. I facilitated it. There's a difference. Not really. Beatrice sipped her coffee. You spent $6 million to protect this family. Then you spent who knows how much more in legal fees to make sure Brad faced justice. And now you're making sure his victims get compensated. How much has this whole thing cost you? I thought about it. The money to pay the Volkovs. The legal fees. The security costs. The private investigators. The bribes to foreign officials to expedite Brad's extradition. The support for Emily's education and housing. About $15 million, all told. Beatrice whistled softly. That's more than some people make in a lifetime. And it was worth every penny. Was it? The question hung in the air. Was it worth it? $15 million to punish one man for his crimes against my family? Yes, I said finally. Because the alternative was living in fear. Living with the knowledge that he got away with it. Living with the possibility that he might come back someday and try again. This way, I know he's gone. I know he's facing consequences. I know my family is safe. And the Volkovs? You really think they'll honor their agreement? They've left us alone for over a year. Marcus says their operations are thriving. They have no reason to revisit a closed deal. And if they do, I shrugged. I still have that document. I still have my contacts in federal law enforcement. I still have leverage. You sound like a man who's fought this kind of battle before. I've fought worse. Hostile takeovers. Market crashes. Pirates off the coast of Somalia. This was just another challenge. Different in type but not in kind. You're a dangerous man, John Prescott. Only to people who threaten my family. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the birds in the garden. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear Emily laughing on a phone call with friends. Normal life. Happy life. This was what I had fought for. This moment. This peace. 3 years later, Brad Thompson was released early for good behavior. He served 10 years of his 15-year sentence. When he got out, he tried to contact Emily. Left messages. Sent letters. Tried to explain that he had changed. That prison had reformed him. That he wanted a chance to apologize. Emily brought the letters to me. What should I do? What do you want to do? Part of me wants to forgive him, to believe people can change. But part of me remembers everything he did, everything he was willing to do. Then trust your instincts. You don't owe him anything. Not forgiveness. Not a conversation. Not even acknowledgement. He made his choices. You get to make yours. Emily nodded slowly. I'm going to ignore him. Move on with my life. If he's really changed, he'll respect that. And if he hasn't, she looked at me. You'll handle it? I'll handle it. Brad tried for 3 months. Calls. Letters. Even showing up outside Emily's apartment once. She called the police. They filed a restraining order. He violated it twice. Got arrested. Went back to jail for 6 months. When he got out the second time, he finally seemed to understand. The messages stopped. The letters stopped. He moved to another state and disappeared from our lives. But I kept track of him. Discreetly. Through private investigators and periodic reports. I knew where he lived. Where he worked. Who he associated with. Because I had learned my lesson. You don't turn your back on a snake. You watch it. You track it. You make sure it never gets close enough to strike again. Brad Thompson was alive. Free, in a technical sense. But he would never be part of our lives again. Never threaten our family again. Never hurt the people I loved again. That was the real price he paid. Not the prison sentence. Not the financial ruin. But the permanent exile from everything he had once tried to steal. And that, I decided, was justice enough. 5 years after Brad's initial conviction, I finally retired from the shipping business. Sold my remaining shares in the company. Handed over operations to a management team I trusted. Walked away from the empire I had built over 4 decades. How does it feel? Beatrice asked on my first day of retirement. Strange. Good. Like I'm finally letting go of something I held too tightly for too long. Any regrets? None about the business. Some about the time it took away from you and Emily. But I can't change that now. I can only do better going forward. And what will you do with all this free time? Travel with you. Spend time with Emily. Maybe write a book about the shipping industry. Or just sit in this garden and watch the birds. I've earned the right to do nothing for a while. You'll be bored within a week. Probably. But I'll be bored with the people I love. That's a much better kind of bored than being busy and alone. Emily got her PhD. Opened a consulting firm that helped families who had been victimized by financial crimes. She used her experience with Brad to help others navigate the complex legal and emotional aftermath of betrayal. You're doing important work, I told her at her office opening. I'm doing the work you taught me to do. Stand up for what's right. Protect the vulnerable. Never let the bad guys win. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you too, Dad. You could have just paid Brad's debt and walked away. You could have let him disappear without consequences. But you made sure he faced justice. Even when it was expensive and complicated and dangerous. You showed me what integrity looks like. Those words meant more to me than any business success I had ever achieved. I'm 70 years old now. Beatrice is 72. Emily is 40 and has her own successful business. We're a family again. Healed. Stronger. But I still think about that night. Coming home to find my wife on the doormat in the rain. Brad's laughter. His designer shoes. The casual cruelty of how he treated someone who couldn't fight back. Those memories fuel me. Remind me why I fought so hard. Why I spent so much money. Why I took so many risks. Because family is everything. Because dignity matters. Because people who hurt the innocent must face consequences. Brad Thompson tried to destroy my family. He tried to end me. He mistreated my wife and manipulated my daughter. But he failed. Because I was smarter. Because I was more ruthless when it mattered. Because I understood that sometimes justice requires getting your hands dirty. He's out there somewhere, living a diminished life. Working menial jobs. Struggling to pay rent. Always looking over his shoulder. Always wondering if someone from his past will find him. That's his prison now. Not bars and cells, but the knowledge that he lost everything. That he will never again have what he tried to steal. And me, I have my family, my peace, my garden, my comfortable retirement. I won. He lost. That's the only ending this story could have. Some people might say I should forgive him. That holding on to anger is toxic. That true strength is letting go. Those people have never had someone try to end them. Have never watched someone they loved be mistreated and degraded. Have never faced the choice between justice and peace. I chose justice. And I would make the same choice again. Every single time. Because at the end of the day, when I look at my wife and daughter, when I see them happy and safe and thriving, I know that every dollar spent, every risk taken, every difficult decision made was worth it. Brad Thompson wiped his muddy designer shoes on my wife's sleeve and laughed. But I had the last laugh. And that laugh echoes through every peaceful day I now enjoy. Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about restoration. About making sure the people who were hurt can heal. About creating a world where the bad guys don't win simply because good people are too tired or scared or civilized to fight back. I fought back. With every resource at my disposal. With every ounce of cunning and determination I had developed over 40 years of cutthroat business. And I won. Not because I was perfect. Not because I made all the right choices. But because I never stopped fighting for what mattered most. My family. That's the real story. Not about revenge or money or legal maneuvering. But about an old man who came home to find his world destroyed and decided that destruction was not acceptable. So he rebuilt. He fought. He won. And now, 5 years later, sitting in my garden with my wife beside me and my daughter's laughter echoing through the house, I can finally say with certainty, it was worth it. All of it. Every penny. Every risk. Every sleepless night. Because this peace, this safety, this family restored, this is what I was fighting for all along. Brad Thompson thought he could turn my wife into his maid. Thought he could steal my life's work. Thought he could end me and get away with it. He was wrong. And that's the ending he earned. Not violence. Not dramatic confrontation. But slow, grinding consequences. Legal. Financial. Social. The kind of destruction that happens in courtrooms and bankruptcy proceedings and restraining orders. The kind of destruction that's permanent. He wanted my life. Instead, he lost his own. That's justice. That's victory. And that's why, when I go to sleep each night in my own bed, in my own house, with my wife safe beside me and my daughter thriving in the world, I sleep soundly. Because the bad guy didn't win. We did. And that's the only ending this story ever could have had. Let me know in the comments where you have watched it from and what you would have done if you were in my place. If you loved my story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It inspires us to share more such stories with you.